11 terrifying recent archaeological discoveries that even the bravest scientists are afraid of. My friend, have you ever wondered what secrets humanity has buried beneath that seemingly silent layer of Earth for thousands of years? Things that ancient people once feared, avoided, or even sealed away. Today, as modern science finally reaches them, do we truly have the courage to face what lies beneath? Welcome to the Ancient History Channel. Today, we're about to embark on a journey that is anything but comfortable. A journey where every archaeological dig doesn't just uncover history, but also awakens long-forgotten nightmares. Some discoveries have left even the most seasoned scientists speechless for long moments. Some findings are so disturbing that many wish they had never been unearthed at all. And there are mysteries that, even to this day, no one dares to claim they fully understand. Do you think archaeology is just bones, pottery, and a few broken statues? Think again. Behind it all are chilling stories, traces of strange rituals, evidence of ancient catastrophes, and even phenomena that seem to defy everything modern science believes it knows. The most frightening thing isn't how these discoveries look, but the questions they leave behind. What really happened in the past? In this video, we'll be counting down 11 of the most terrifying recent archaeological discoveries, findings so unsettling that even the bravest scientists approach them with caution. Stay until the very end, because the further we go, the more spine-chilling it becomes. And who knows, by the time this video ends, you may never look at history the same way again. So, are you ready? If you are, let's begin. 10,000-year-old skeleton beneath a flooded cave in Mexico. Close your eyes and imagine diving into a flooded cave where light almost completely disappears, surrounded only by jagged rocks and razor-sharp stalactites that threaten your life at every turn, until suddenly, you touch traces of a human being from more than 10,000 years ago. Yes, that is exactly what Mexican archaeologists experienced when they ventured deep into a submerged cave and officially announced their findings on August 24, 2024. On Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, in the state of Quintana Roo, inside a flooded cave stretching approximately 1,778 feet in length and plunging to depths of over 26 feet, scientists brought to light a human skeleton dated to between 10,000 and 14,000 years old. The remains were later named the Chan Hole Youth, after the cave in which they were discovered. At first glance, the story may sound simple, nothing particularly extraordinary, but the journey to recover the skeleton was far more arduous than one might imagine. In fact, the skeleton was initially discovered back in 2006. However, Chan Hole Cave is not a place that anyone can simply enter. The interior is narrow and confined, almost entirely flooded, and filled with sharp stalactites capable of causing fatal injuries to divers. Because of these extreme dangers, archaeologists were forced for many years to do little more than document the skeleton's location and condition, unable to safely excavate and recover it until 2024. Preliminary analyses suggest the remains belong to a young individual, most likely buried during the late Pleistocene epoch, a period when global sea levels were approximately 490 feet lower than they are today. This means that at the time of this person's death, Chan Hole Cave may have still been dry land, not yet flooded by rising seawater as it is now. That detail alone is enough to send a chill down one's spine when we consider the dramatic and unforgiving changes the Earth has undergone over tens of thousands of years, isn't it? So far, about 60% of the skeleton has been recovered, including the limbs, spine, ribs, skull, and several teeth. Even so, researchers say they will need several more months to determine crucial information such as the individual's sex, lifespan, cause of death, and exact age at the time of passing. Each bone, each tooth, is like a small puzzle piece in a vast historical picture that humanity is still struggling to complete. But what truly makes the Chan Hole Youth remarkable is not only the great age of the skeleton, but the profound scientific implications it carries. For a long time, many believed that the Clovis people, migrants from North Asia, were the first humans to set foot in the Americas near the end of the last ice age, crossing via the Bering Land Bridge. Yet discoveries in Quintana Roo, where a total of 4 ancient human skeletons have now been found in flooded caves, appear to tell a different story. The evidence suggests there may have been an earlier wave of migration, possibly even originating from Southeast Asia, predating the Clovis culture entirely. If this hypothesis is confirmed, the history of human migration into the Americas would need to be rewritten. And that leads to an even bigger question. How did these ancient people survive vast oceans, brutal climates, and countless dangers to reach an entirely new land? So when we look at the skeleton of the Chonhol youth, we are not merely seeing lifeless bones. We are confronting a powerful reminder that human history is still full of gaps. And perhaps beneath those dark caves and beneath the cold, deep waters, countless secrets are still waiting to be told, reminding us that humanity's journey across this earth is far more epic and mysterious than any history book has ever recorded. What do you think? 1,000-year-old mummy in the heart of Lima, Peru, the rise of the Ixma civilization. In the heart of a bustling capital, where traffic never stops and modern buildings stand shoulder to shoulder, it is hard to believe that by digging just a little beneath the ground, one can come face to face with history from over 1,000 years ago. And yet, that seemingly impossible moment has just occurred in Lima, the capital of Peru, where archaeologists have discovered a 1,000-year-old mummy at the Huacapuclana archaeological site. The discovery immediately drew widespread attention, not only because of its age, but also because of the historical stories it is beginning to reveal. The information was officially confirmed at a press conference on September 6th by Mirella Ganoza, the lead archaeologist on the project. According to Ganoza, the mummy was found in an almost perfectly preserved state, something rarely seen in archaeological excavations. Long hair was still intact, the jawbone was nearly complete, and most striking of all, the body had been placed in a seated position, a burial posture that is highly characteristic of ancient cultures in this region. That detail alone has given researchers pause, as burial positions often reflect deeply held beliefs about the afterlife. The discovery site, Huacapuclana, is located right in the Miraflores district, the very center of Lima. This site is no stranger to archaeologists. It has long been regarded as a vast historical treasure. In the past, numerous other mummies and ritual offerings have already been uncovered here. For that reason, finding yet another nearly intact mummy further strengthens the belief that Huacapuclana has not been fully explored, and that beneath the soil, many more secrets may still be waiting to be awakened. The mummy is believed to belong to the Ixma culture, a civilization that once flourished along Peru's central coast from the 9th to the 15th century, before the rise of the Inca Empire. Although the Ixma are not as globally famous as the Incas, they played a crucial role in Peru's history. They were known for their massive adobe architecture, refined textile craftsmanship, and sophisticated agricultural systems adapted to the harsh coastal environment. Because of this, the discovery of the mummy at Huacapuclana serves as a valuable missing piece, helping scientists better understand the spiritual life, beliefs, and social structure of the Ixma people. Who was this individual? What social class did they belong to? What role did they play in their society? Each question opens up new avenues of research, making history feel alive rather than confined to dry lines and textbooks. It is also worth noting that Huacapuclana is far from unique. Peru is home to more than 400 archaeological sites, many of them located right within densely populated urban areas. This makes Peru one of the countries with the richest archaeological heritage in the world. Discoveries like this 1,000-year-old mummy are not only historically significant, they also help shed light on pre-Columbian civilizations, cultures that existed, thrived, and disappeared long before Europeans ever set foot in the Americas. And as we look at this mummy resting silently beneath the city of Lima, we are reminded of something profound. Beneath every step we take, history is still there. It may be close or it may be deeply buried, but with enough patience and curiosity, modern humanity can still listen to the voices of civilizations that have slept for thousands of years. A 200-year-old body found almost perfectly preserved in the heart of New York. Now, do you believe me if I tell you that in the middle of a noisy, dust-filled construction site in Queens, New York, a place where workers are usually focused only on finishing the project on schedule, there was a hidden secret powerful enough to shock the entire nation? Hard to believe, right? I'm guessing you'd think so. But if you truly doubt it, let's rewind time back to October 2018. During construction work at that time, workers suddenly uncovered an iron coffin buried deep underground. And when the coffin was opened, everyone was left nearly frozen in shock, because inside lay the body of a young woman, preserved in a way that seemed almost impossible. At first glance, many believed this was a recent homicide. The body still retained clear human features, with the skin showing very little decomposition. Local police initially assumed the woman had died only a few days earlier. Investigators even considered the possibility that she was the victim of a recent murder. As a result, the construction site was immediately sealed off, and all attention turned to this bizarre crime scene in the middle of a modern city. However, the truth revealed through forensic examination stunned both authorities and the public alike. Test results showed that the woman had actually died around 170 years ago, nearly 2 centuries in the past. She was estimated to be between 25 and 30 years old, approximately 5 feet 3 inches tall, and identified as an African American woman. This fact alone completely overturned every initial assumption. Upon closer examination, experts discovered that the woman had been buried with remarkable care. She was dressed in a 19th century silk nightgown, wore a woven bonnet, and had long stockings pulled up to her knees. Her hair was neatly arranged, and her body appeared to have been thoroughly washed before being placed in the coffin. These details clearly indicate that this was not a neglected death, but a proper and respectful burial, carefully prepared by family members or the surrounding community. But that wasn't the most shocking part. What truly astonished scientists was the state of preservation of the body. Despite being underground for nearly 200 years, the woman's skin remained largely intact. On her forehead and chest, experts even observed marks resembling lesions caused by smallpox, which is believed to have been the likely cause of her death. Under normal circumstances, a human body would have almost completely decomposed after such a long period of time. Yet in this case, everything seemed to defy the laws of nature. What makes the case even more puzzling is that experts found no evidence of embalming chemicals or artificial preservation techniques. There were no signs that the body had been treated or prepared in any special way. This led to a fascinating hypothesis. The woman's body may have been preserved entirely through natural means. At this point, the iron coffin became the center of speculation. Many researchers believed that the material itself acted like a protective chamber, creating a sealed environment that limited bacteria, moisture, and external elements, thereby slowing decomposition far more than usual. Still, this remains only an initial theory, as science has yet to provide a fully convincing explanation for this extraordinary phenomenon. To this day, the woman's true identity remains a mystery. Who was she? What kind of life did she live in American society nearly 200 years ago? And why was her body preserved in such an unusual way? What do you think the answer might be? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts with me and everyone else in the comments below. The remains of a birdman in a 5,000-year-old burial in Siberia. In the desolate frozen lands of Siberia, where time seems to stand still and nature retains the raw harshness of thousands of years ago, archaeologists have announced the discovery of a 5,000-year-old grave containing the remains of a mysterious birdman. The individual was buried wearing an unusual costume made from more than 50 bird beaks, believed to belong to herons or cranes. This discovery has not only sparked intense curiosity within the scientific community, but has also opened the door to many compelling hypotheses about beliefs, rituals, and social hierarchy in the ancient civilizations of this remote Siberian region. The grave was excavated at the Ust-Tartas archaeological site in the Novosibirsk region of western Siberia, under the leadership of researcher Lilia Kobaleva and a team of experts from the Novosibirsk Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography. When layers of permafrost were carefully removed, the team was astonished to find the long decomposed remains of a man, still bearing clear traces of a garment composed entirely of bird beaks. These beaks were arranged along the back of the skull and extended down toward the neck, resembling a meticulously crafted decorative collar. According to researcher Kobaleva, the bird beaks were likely once attached to fabric, animal hide, or ropes made from natural fibers, forming a ceremonial garment with profound spiritual significance. What further amazed archaeologists was that the beaks were not placed randomly. Instead, they followed a deliberate and structured arrangement, reflecting a complex burial ritual that may have been tied to religious practices or signified the deceased's elevated social status. Based on this striking feature, experts have proposed that the birdman may have been a shaman, ritual priest, or religious leader of the Odinov culture, an ancient community that lived in Siberia around 5,000 years ago. In the belief systems of many ancient cultures, birds were considered sacred beings, symbols that connected the heavens and the earth, humans and the spirit world. Herons and cranes, frequently appearing in northern myths, were seen as symbols of wisdom, rebirth, and the ability to move between different realms. Burying the man with more than 50 bird beaks may therefore reflect a belief that he could continue his spiritual role even after death. The research team stated that their next steps will be extremely complex and require absolute caution. Carefully separating each beak to determine exactly how it was attached, along with identifying any remaining binding materials, could take several months. This process will be key not only to understanding this one-of-a-kind garment, but also to gaining deeper insight into the craftsmanship, technical skills, and aesthetic sensibilities of people from that era. However, the mysteries do not end there. Near the burial of the birdman, archaeologists also discovered a second grave containing the remains of 2 children and 1 adult man. The first child is estimated to have died at around 5 years old, while the second was approximately 10 years old. This raises a haunting question. What was their relationship to the birdman? Was this part of a sacrificial ritual, a collective burial, or were these unrelated individuals buried near one another due to spiritual beliefs? Most intriguingly, beside the remains of the adult male in the second grave, archaeologists uncovered a mysterious object resembling a pair of eyeglasses. This find immediately sparked curiosity and skepticism within the scientific community, as the existence of an object with optical characteristics during the Middle Stone Age is almost unimaginable. Experts are currently analyzing this object to determine its exact material, function, and whether it may have been a ritual item or held some special symbolic meaning. Altogether, the discoveries at Ust-Tartas are opening a new chapter in the archaeological history of Siberia, a region where ancient cultures still seem to hold countless undiscovered secrets. From the bird beak costume to the enigmatic objects found alongside the remains, each element feels like an incomplete piece of a deep and ancient story, prompting us to ask, what did people of that time believe in? How did they live? And just how important was spirituality in their daily lives? As the frozen layers of Earth slowly reveal the past, the journey to uncover the identity and beliefs of our ancestors becomes more fascinating and compelling than ever. What do you think? The remains of male-female couples, embracing in an ancient grave, a ritual that remains unexplained. Most of us, when standing before an ancient grave and peeling back layers of soil that have lain undisturbed for 5,000 years, would probably expect to find nothing more than a few scattered bones or faint traces of a vanished community. That seems reasonable, doesn't it? But for archaeologists in Western Siberia, what they encountered was very different. Something so shocking that it left the scientific community silent for a long time. Inside the grave lay not one, but 2 male-female couples, positioned face down against one another in the same strange pose, as if a secret ritual had been carefully arranged thousands of years ago. This ancient grave, dated to around 5,000 years old, is located in a Bronze Age cemetery in what is now the Novosibirsk region of Western Siberia. The individuals buried there belong to the Odinov culture, a relatively isolated community that chose the lower reaches of the Ishim River to establish their settlements. They hunted, fished, raised sheep and horses, and lived largely cut off from neighboring groups. On the surface, the Odinov may appear similar to many other ancient communities, but their funerary rituals were anything but ordinary. That isolation gave rise to burial practices so distinctive that, even today, they remain a major mystery. When the upper layer of the grave was removed, archaeologists were stunned to see the remains of a man and a woman. The man lay on his back, while the woman lay face down on top of him, as if tightly embracing him. But that was not all. Resting on the woman's shoulder was a small human-like figurine, also placed face down and wearing a strange mask. The couple had been wrapped in birch bark and had undergone a preliminary cremation ritual before burial, a practice that was uncommon among many cultures of the same period. Just when it seemed the mystery could go no deeper, further excavation revealed something even more astonishing. Directly beneath the first couple lay another male-female pair, arranged in exactly the same position. The man lay on his back, the woman face down on top of him, forming a near-perfect mirror of the burial above. This suggests that multi-layered burials were a defining feature of Odinov funerary practices. However, the presence of two couples in identical poses, along with the masked figurine, was unprecedented. Research led by Professor Vyacheslav Muladin of the Novosibirsk Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography uncovered even more puzzling details. When the figurine's mask was removed, the face beneath displayed features characteristic of a purely European Caucasian individual, completely different from the known physical traits of the Odinov people. This raised a major question. Who did the figurine represent, and why did it appear in the burial ritual of such an isolated community? The mystery deepened further when researchers discovered that the figurine's abdomen had been hollowed out and filled with organic material, the exact nature of which remains unidentified. Some theories suggest it may have been an offering, a talisman, or part of a spiritual ritual connected to fertility, death, or rebirth. The figurine's face-down position suggests it may have represented a woman, but the final ritual detail is even more difficult to interpret. The figurine's head had been deliberately broken off and placed separately, with the face turned upward toward the sky. So who were these two male-female couples? Were they husbands and wives, relatives, or individuals specifically chosen for a special ritual? And what role did the figurine with the unfamiliar face play in the spiritual world of the Odinov people? To this day, the 5,000-year-old grave in Siberia has offered no complete answers. The natural mummy of a 300-year-old priest in Austria. If death is usually seen as the final full stop, then this story feels more like an ellipsis, stretching on for more than 3 centuries. A man who died in 1746 remains, even today, almost perfectly preserved, as if time itself had somehow forgotten him beneath the cold earth. This extraordinary discovery not only stunned the public, but also forced the scientific community to spend months searching for an explanation. The central figure of this story is Franz Xaver Sidler von Rosenegg, an Austrian priest who lived in the village of St. Thomas am Blasenstein. After his death in the 18th century, Franz was buried in a local crypt, dressed in traditional alpine clothing. No one could have imagined that nearly 300 years later, when his body was re-examined, it would still be in such astonishing condition. No embalming, no chemicals, and yet almost no severe signs of decomposition. This alone led many to describe the case as a miracle. Under normal circumstances, a human body would completely decay after just a few decades, let alone after 272 years. Yet when researchers examined Franz's remains, they found that his skin, body shape, and even his clothing had been preserved in a remarkable state. The atmosphere inside the crypt felt as though time had been frozen at the very moment he passed away. To unravel this mystery, scientists from the University of Munich conducted an investigation that lasted 10 months. Earlier theories had suggested that Franz may have died from epilepsy, but the new findings completely ruled this out. According to forensic experts Andreas Nerlich, Peter Hofer, and Oliver Peschel, the true cause of death was tuberculosis. Severe damage to the lungs and evidence of internal bleeding indicated that the disease had reached an advanced stage before claiming his life. The investigation revealed another unexpected detail. Franz had been a heavy smoker. Wear patterns and scratches on his teeth, combined with the condition of his lungs, showed that he had smoked for many years. This surprised many researchers, as smoking was not yet widespread in the 18th century, especially for a rural Austrian priest. So what allowed Franz's body to survive nearly 3 centuries without decomposing? The answer lies not in divine intervention, but in the burial environment itself. The crypt where Franz was laid to rest had very specific temperature and humidity conditions, creating an almost ideal setting for natural preservation. In addition, his body was covered with scraps of fabric, pieces of wood, and tree branches. These seemingly simple materials unintentionally limited the intrusion of bacteria and insects, significantly slowing the decomposition process. The story becomes even more intriguing with the discovery of a small round object found in the lower abdominal area of the mummy. Further examination identified it as a glass bead, commonly used in handicrafts and religious rosaries. However, how this object ended up inside Franz's body remains unexplained to this day. Today, the naturally preserved mummy of Father Franz has been returned to the crypt and is displayed for visitors. And when standing before a body nearly 300 years old, people are not only witnessing a rare phenomenon, they are also reminded of something profound. There are moments in history where science can explain a great deal, yet still leaves behind mysteries large enough to keep human curiosity alive. 10 2,500-year-old crocodile mummies reveal spine-chilling secrets from the Egyptian desert. Try to imagine this scene. Amid the scorching sands along the Nile River, you come across massive crocodile bodies lying motionless, rough-skinned, their jaws slightly open, as if they had stopped breathing only moments ago. At first glance, anyone might mistake them for living creatures, right? But no, the truth is far more unsettling. These are 10 crocodile mummies that have been sleeping beneath the sands of Egypt for more than 2,500 years. This extraordinary discovery was unearthed by archaeologists at the Kubit al-Hawa necropolis in Aswan province, located on the west bank of the Nile. This was no ordinary burial site. It was a place deeply connected to the sacred rituals of ancient Egypt. According to researchers, these crocodiles were likely mummified as offerings to Sobek, the crocodile god, symbolizing strength, fertility, and protection. To the ancient Egyptians, crocodiles were not merely terrifying predators of the Nile. They held a special place in both spiritual belief and daily life. They were worshipped yet also used as food. Crocodile fat was even considered a kind of miracle remedy, believed to treat aches, joint stiffness, and according to some ancient beliefs, even baldness. It may sound amusing today, but for people of that time, these beliefs were taken very seriously. Among the 10 mummies discovered, 5 consist only of skulls, while the remaining 5 are preserved in varying conditions. The most remarkable of all is a nearly intact crocodile measuring over 6 feet 11 inches long, preserved almost completely from head to tail. Its size and condition left archaeologists genuinely astonished. Based on skull shape, bone arrangement, and scale patterns, researchers believe most of the crocodiles belong to Crocodilus sucius, a species commonly associated with religious rituals in ancient Egypt. A smaller number appear to be Crocodilus niloticus, the familiar Nile crocodile. What surprised scientists even more, however, was how these mummies were preserved. Typically, both human and animal mummies were wrapped in linen and coated with resin to prevent decay. Yet these 10 crocodile mummies showed no traces of resin at all. The few remnants of linen that remained had largely been destroyed by insects. This led researchers to a compelling hypothesis. The crocodiles may have been naturally mummified by burial in hot desert sand. The intense heat and arid conditions would have gradually dried out their bodies, creating a kind of natural desert mummy before they were formally interred. Scientists estimate that these mummies date back to around the 5th century BCE, a period when animal mummification was flourishing in ancient Egypt. Still to be certain, further radiocarbon dating and DNA analysis are needed to confirm their exact age and definitively identify the 2 crocodile species. Researchers hope that these studies will soon provide answers and perhaps also reveal how ancient Egyptians truly viewed crocodiles, as monsters, as gods, or somehow both at the same time. A noblewoman's mummy emerges from a stone coffin after centuries. Have you ever thought that something as simple as a drop in water levels could suddenly bring a centuries-old secret back into the light? In the icy region of Siberia, Russia, at precisely such a moment, archaeologists came face to face with a discovery that sent chills down the spine while sparking intense curiosity. A nearly perfectly preserved female mummy, lying motionless inside a stone coffin that had been submerged underwater for hundreds of years. This tomb had remained hidden beneath the water for a long time, completely unknown to anyone. Only when the water level at a nearby dam unexpectedly dropped did part of the stone coffin emerge, as if the past itself had chosen to speak. Inside lay the body of a woman whose form was still clearly defined, dressed in an exquisitely crafted silk gown. What is truly astonishing is that the body had undergone no artificial mummification process at all. Instead, it was preserved entirely by natural conditions. According to experts, the sealed stone coffin, combined with Siberia's naturally cold climate, created a perfect natural preservation chamber. In addition, the layers of silk surrounding the body helped limit the intrusion of moisture and bacteria, preventing decomposition in the usual way. As a result, after hundreds of years, the woman's remains appear so remarkably intact that many have wondered whether time itself ever truly passed for this tomb. During a more detailed examination, archaeologists uncovered additional artifacts rich in ancient cultural meaning. Resting on the mummy's chest was a small pouch of pine nuts. In ancient belief, such an item was placed in a grave with the hope that it would help the deceased make a smooth journey into the afterlife. This small detail reveals that the burial ritual was far from simple, carrying deep spiritual significance. The discoveries did not end there. Beside the body, researchers found a cosmetic box. Inside were pieces of birch bark and a small mirror. These seemingly ordinary objects opened a window into the woman's life when she was alive. Clearly, she cared about her appearance and personal routines, an indication that her social status was likely quite high. Based on the artifacts found, experts believe the woman belonged to an ancient nomadic Hun community and was most likely of noble origin. Items such as silk, mirrors, and coins were not common possessions among ordinary people at the time. Notably, these artifacts date to the same period as China's Han Dynasty, which lasted from approximately 206 BCE to 220 CE. This overlap points to a strong level of cultural exchange across regions, far beyond what we often imagine when thinking about the ancient world. As of now, the woman's true identity remains a mystery. Who was she? What kind of life did she lead among the vast steppes and ancient trade routes? Scientists continue their research, hoping that each small piece of evidence will gradually reveal the portrait of a noble beauty who lay sleeping beneath the waters of Siberia for centuries, waiting for the right moment to tell her story. A mysterious treasure in an abandoned dry well. In a quiet rural area of Sussex County, England, few would suspect that beneath the worn stone floor of a local bar lay an unexpected treasure. Not gold or jewels from legend, but approximately 377 pounds of coins, along with a collection of mysterious objects, all recovered from the depths of an ancient dry well more than 72 feet deep, with a history dating back nearly 600 years. The story begins at the Abergavenny Arms, a building steeped in history, originally constructed in the 15th century. Over the centuries, it has served as a courthouse, a mortuary, and today, a cozy traditional-style bar. Its moss-covered stone walls hold far more than meets the eye. The current owner, Lucy Sargent, discovered the long-forgotten dry well hidden beneath the bar's floor during a routine inspection of the building. Driven by curiosity and a hint of hope, Lucy hired a team of specialists to survey and clean out the well. What they found exceeded all expectations. Thousands of metal coins were embedded in the mud, alongside small pieces of jewelry, porcelain dolls, stuffed toys, and even numerous small knives scattered across the bottom of the well, forming a strange and highly symbolic treasure. According to local residents, the well was once known as a wishing well. Over the centuries, countless people had stood at its edge, closed their eyes, tossed a coin inside, and quietly made a wish for love, luck, or peace. Over time, the well became a place that held not only metal, but also the emotions, hopes, and dreams of generations. After the cleanup, the total value of the recovered items was estimated at around 1,000 pounds. While not a large sum, it carried deep meaning for Lucy and the local community. Lucy explained, "We didn't want to keep it for ourselves. This is a gift from the past, and we want it to become something positive in the present." As a result, she chose to donate 75% of the money to the New Haven RNLY, an organization dedicated to life-saving missions along the southern coast of England. The remaining funds were given to Rodmell Parish Church, a long-standing spiritual symbol of the area. The story of the ancient well captivates not because of its monetary value, but because of the questions it raises about history, spirituality, and humanity. Who was the first person to toss a coin into the well? What were those small knives, children's toys, or tools used in ancient rituals? And the wishes once whispered into the darkness, did any of them ever come true? Perhaps the most remarkable part of this discovery is not the treasure itself, but the way modern people choose to honor the past, not by tearing it apart or rushing through it, but by gently communicating with time through thoughtful and humane actions. In a world that changes every day, sometimes even an old forgotten well can tell stories that were never written down. The past really is fascinating, isn't it? The two-headed Egyptian princess mummy, one human head, one crocodile head. Some images send a chill down your spine at first glance, and the image of a two-headed mummy is certainly one of them. One head is human, while the other takes the form of a crocodile, an animal that was both sacred and terrifying in ancient Egyptian culture. When this image suddenly spread online in July 2018, it left not only the archaeological community but also internet users around the world stunned. Many people could barely imagine how horrifying such a creature would have been if it had existed in life. At first sight, most assumed it was some kind of ancient deformity or a dark ritual far beyond the imagination of the modern world. However, the truth behind this two-headed mummy turned out to be just as surprising and deeply thought-provoking. After careful scientific examination, researchers confirmed that this was not a real hybrid creature, but rather the result of two separate mummies being deliberately combined, one belonging to a very young Egyptian princess and the other to a Nile crocodile. What makes this discovery even more shocking is the fact that the strange mummy had been hidden from the public for more than a century. It was only revealed after Sultan Abdulhamid II of the Ottoman Empire, who had once kept the artifact in his possession, was no longer in power. Once the veil of history was lifted, the world began asking difficult questions. Why was an Egyptian princess buried with a crocodile? And why were the two bodies merged into such a disturbing form? According to ancient records and modern hypotheses, the ancient Egyptians typically buried members of the royal family alongside valuable objects meant to protect and serve them in the afterlife. The burial of a young princess together with a crocodile was therefore considered extremely rare. One widely circulated legend suggests that the princess tragically died at a very young age after being attacked by a Nile crocodile. Overwhelmed by grief, the pharaoh, her father, made a haunting decision: to combine his daughter's body with that of the crocodile responsible for her death. Yet this decision may not have stemmed solely from personal tragedy. In ancient Egyptian belief, crocodiles were seen as earthly manifestations of Sobek, the powerful god of the Nile, fertility and primal strength. Sobek was both worshipped and feared. Merging the princess's body with a crocodile may have been intended as a sacred ritual, based on the hope that in the afterlife she would be reborn in the form of a crocodile, continuing her existence as a strong and immortal being. It was this profound religious belief that allowed such a ritual to transcend ordinary logic. To the ancient Egyptians, death was not an end, but a gateway to another form of existence. As a result, what appears horrific to us today may have represented protection and salvation to them. Even so, many questions remain unanswered. How exactly was the fusion of the two mummies carried out? Was this a known ritual, or merely an isolated act driven by royal grief? And did the princess truly meet the tragic fate described in legend? For now, these unanswered questions remain fragmented pieces of a larger puzzle, ensuring that the two-headed mummy continues to stand as one of the most haunting mysteries of ancient Egyptian civilization. The mysterious underwater pyramid in Japan that could change human history. Beneath the clear blue waters of the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of Yonaguni Island, the southernmost point of Japan's Ryukyu archipelago, lies a mystery that has puzzled scientists for nearly 40 years. It is neither a shipwreck nor a simple natural formation. Instead, it is a vast, awe-inspiring structure resting silently on the ocean floor, bearing the unmistakable appearance of a sunken ancient city. First discovered in 1985 by a professional diver, this architectural complex was later named the Yonaguni Monument, and it is unlike anything ever found before. Massive stone staircases stretch across the seabed, alongside enormous pyramid-like formations with strikingly precise geometric shapes hidden deep beneath the water, as if an ancient civilization once existed here and vanished without leaving an explanation. When viewed from above, the structure resembles a gigantic labyrinth, meticulously arranged with sharp angles and straight edges, immediately leading many to suspect human involvement. The stone steps descend downward like entrances to ancient temples. Some sections of the complex rise up to about 88 feet high, roughly the height of a 9-story building. Even more astonishing is the fact that the entire structure is made of mudstone, a material that is extremely difficult to shape by hand on such a massive scale. According to dating analyses, the Yonaguni Monument may have been formed between 8,000 and 10,000 BCE, making it older than any known human civilization, including ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. If this is true, then what lies beneath the waters of Japan could fundamentally rewrite the history of human civilization. Since its discovery, Yonaguni has become the center of countless debates, theories, and even conspiracy claims. Some believe it is the remnant of Mu, a legendary lost civilization said to have existed in the Pacific Ocean before being destroyed by massive tsunamis. Others claim it is the Eastern Atlantis, a city that vanished without a trace after a catastrophic natural disaster. There are even theories involving extraterrestrial beings. Supporters of this idea argue that the underwater structures are far too precise, too symmetrical, and too massive to have been built by primitive humans, requiring construction techniques that even modern society would struggle to replicate. So who built Yonaguni? Could it be that the first advanced civilization on Earth was not humanity? Amid the sea of speculation, Professor Masaaki Kimura, a renowned marine geologist at the University of the Ryukyus, has dedicated nearly his entire career to studying Yonaguni. He has stated that he initially believed the formations were natural. However, after his first dive, his perspective completely changed. Beneath layers of sediment, he discovered evidence of stone cutting marks, primitive carvings, and even rock formations shaped like animals. He firmly stated, "There is too much evidence for this to be a purely geological phenomenon. Clear signs of human involvement are present here." Adding to the controversy, archaeologists from the University of London issued a startling claim that the people who built Yonaguni may have been more advanced than the Mesopotamian or Indus Valley civilizations, long considered the cradle of human civilization. This raises an enormous question. Could there have been a highly advanced civilization that once existed but completely vanished from history? And if so, what happened to it? A great flood? A catastrophic earthquake? Or simply the slow erosion of time? No one knows for certain. Only the ocean continues to guard its secrets, and the Yonaguni monument stands as a reminder that humanity may not fully understand its own past. Today, thanks to modern archaeological technology, research teams are continuing to reconstruct 3D models of the entire complex. Data collected from drones, sonar systems, and satellite imagery is gradually revealing Yonaguni's original appearance. Perhaps in the near future, we will be able to explore this submerged city through virtual reality, walking through its stone corridors, standing before ancient stairways, and witnessing history through modern eyes. Deep beneath the ocean, where sunlight barely reaches, Yonaguni continues to wait, a forgotten chapter of history, a puzzle that challenges humanity, and possibly the key to unlocking the dawn of the first civilization on Earth. CT scan of an Egyptian king's skull. Scientists were shocked to discover this secret. Hello, and welcome back to the Ancient History Channel. My friend, did you know that from ancient times all the way to the present day, the ancient world has remained like a tightly locked chest, filled with mysteries that continually spark human curiosity? The more we explore, the more we come to realize that history is not silent like dry, lifeless pages in a book. Instead, it whispers stories that have never been fully told. Have you ever wondered how those once glorious civilizations truly disappeared? From the mysterious sacred relics of the Jewish people, to mass graves that have puzzled scientists for decades, to strange fossils, and even perfectly preserved mummies, so unsettling that merely looking at them can send a chill down your spine. All of these are incomplete fragments of the past. These traces do more than reveal the development of humankind. They also raise countless unanswered questions. So what really happened during those distant years long ago? Could it be that we are missing a hidden truth, buried beneath the sands of time? If you're just as curious as I am, then don't look away, because right now, we are about to embark together on a journey to uncover haunting ancient secrets in today's video. Are you ready? If so, let's dive straight into our very first discovery. Perfectly preserved. 6,000-year-old mummy reveals the unsolved secret of Pharaoh Amenhotep I. In the harsh Egyptian desert, where time itself seems capable of grinding everything into dust, researchers discovered a mummy that made the entire scientific community hesitate. It was the mummy of Pharaoh Amenhotep I, an ancient king who had lain undisturbed for more than 6,000 years, yet remained preserved with astonishing precision. The floral wreaths were still intact, the wrappings were intricately decorated, and most remarkably, the coffin itself was shaped to closely resemble a real human body. Faced with such preservation, many scientists found themselves asking, should it even be opened? Or could a single wrong move destroy an irreplaceable heritage? It was this very perfection that caused them to pause. Instead of unwrapping the mummy using traditional methods, a bold decision was made to use modern CT scan technology to see through the mummy without physically touching it. For the first time in history, Amenhotep I was explored in this way. And the images that emerged were truly spine-chilling because they revealed not just bones, but a real human being who once lived. Through the CT scan results, researchers were able to gradually reconstruct the appearance of this pharaoh during his lifetime. Amenhotep I is believed to have ruled from 1525 to 1504 BCE. He died at approximately 35 years old and stood about 5 feet 6.5 inches tall, an impressive height for an ancient Egyptian. Analysis showed that he had been circumcised, a common ritual of the time, and notably, he had very healthy teeth. Professor Sahar Salim of Cairo University described him as having a narrow chin, a small and slender nose, curly hair, and slightly protruding upper teeth. Hearing this, it feels as though we are looking at a real person, no longer just a distant king confined to the pages of history, doesn't it? However, as researchers examined the CT slices more deeply, the story began to take a darker turn. The scans revealed signs of a broken neck and evidence that the head had once been severed from the body. A large portion of the front abdominal wall was missing, the limbs were no longer intact, and even the right hand and foot were gone. These details raised troubling questions. Who caused such severe damage, and when did it happen? To answer these questions, experts conducted further analysis. Gradually, the answer began to emerge when scientists discovered traces of resin used to reattach body parts. This indicated that the separated limbs had once been repaired. The leading hypothesis is that Amenhotep I's tomb may have been looted. Later, priests of the 21st dynasty intervened. They carefully repaired the mummy, returned the arms and legs to their proper positions, rewrapped the body with new bandages, and attempted to restore the king's dignified appearance as it once was. Beyond physical restoration, they also protected him through spiritual belief. Evidence of this was found beneath the wrappings. Researchers discovered 30 protective amulets, along with an exquisitely crafted gold belt. Each item seemed to serve as a promise that even if the body had been damaged, the soul of the pharaoh would remain safe in the afterlife. It was an act that was both methodical and deeply humane, even by ancient standards. Yet the paradox remains. Despite modern technology, the cause of Amenhotep I's death is still a mystery. There are no clear signs of disease, no obvious deformities sufficient to draw a conclusion. Ancient cemetery with thousands of tombs carved into steep cliff faces like a honeycomb. There is a place where, upon arriving, you do not look down at the ground to find graves. You have to look up. Look up at the sheer cliff faces, where thousands of dark openings appear densely packed, like a gigantic honeycomb frozen in stone by time itself. These are not natural caves, but an ancient cemetery, where the dead were buried directly into the mountainside. That place is called Pantalica, one of the most strange and haunting sights on the island of Sicily, Italy. As you may know, Sicily has long been famous as a land of the unusual. Yet few people realize that beyond its ancient cities and crystal blue coastlines, the island also hides an almost perfectly preserved prehistoric necropolis. The rock-cut cemetery of Pantalica is unlike any burial site you have ever seen. To truly take it in, you cannot simply walk inside. Instead, you must stand in the valley below and lift your eyes toward the towering cliffs where thousands of tombs have been carved deep into the limestone. From a distance, the entire necropolis resembles a massive honeycomb clinging to the mountainside. Scattered among the cliffs and caves, researchers have counted approximately 5,000 ancient tombs. All of them were carved by human hands, each one painstakingly chiseled into solid rock. Each tomb has a different shape. Some are square, others rectangular or oval, but they share one common feature: their relatively small size, just large enough to hold the deceased in a tightly flexed position, a burial practice common in ancient times. Stepping inside, the experience becomes even more uncanny. These tombs feel like artificial caves, cool, silent, and enclosed. Some are divided into multiple chambers, suggesting they may have served as burial places for entire families or clans. According to scientific estimates, many of the tombs at Pantalica date back nearly 3,000 years, making it one of the largest prehistoric rock-cut cemeteries in Europe. Pantalica lies within the Hyblaean Mountains, set between valleys carved by the Calcanara and Anapo rivers. The entire necropolis stretches along the mountainsides, forming a landscape that is both majestic and unsettling. Researchers believe this rock-cut cemetery was created by indigenous coastal communities of Sicily during the Late Bronze Age. At the time, carving tombs high into the cliffs may have been a way to protect the dead from wild animals and grave robbers. Yet Pantalica's history did not end there. Many tombs were abandoned when the Sicani people settled in the area during the 7th century BCE. Burial activity resumed in the early Roman period. Centuries later, Muslim communities discovered that these rugged mountains offered an ideal place of refuge, leading to the formation of a medieval settlement in the very heart of this city of the dead. Remarkably, to this day, the Pantalica necropolis remains covered by rich plant and animal life and has been largely untouched by modern infrastructure. Walking through this valley, many people feel as though they are moving backward through time, from the present day to thousands of years in the past. And perhaps because of this unique historical and cultural value, in 2005, Pantalica was recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. If one day you were to stand in this valley and look up at the thousands of tombs carved into the cliffs, would you wonder what led ancient people to choose such a perilous place as their final resting site? What do you think the answer might be? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below. The body of a Chinese noble, found remarkably intact after 1,000 years. You know, there are moments when history does not lie quietly in books, but suddenly emerges right beneath the feet of modern people. And what happened in 2017 in Hunan province, China was exactly such a moment. That year, at a construction site where machinery roared and workers were fully absorbed in their tasks, something unexpected was discovered deep underground: a mysterious coffin. Shortly after the find, archaeological experts were dispatched to the scene, and when the lid of the coffin was carefully opened, everyone was left stunned. Inside were not scattered, dried bones, but the nearly intact body of a man, as if he had only recently been laid to rest. The coffin itself was exquisitely crafted, made from a combination of limestone and high-quality, finely finished wood. This unique combination created a sealed environment that greatly limited the intrusion of air and bacteria, allowing the body to be preserved for centuries with little to no decomposition. Judging by the level of craftsmanship, experts quickly realized that this could not have been an ordinary grave. The burial had been carried out with great care, suggesting that the deceased must have held a certain status in society at the time. Based on initial evidence, archaeologists believe the man lived during the late Ming dynasty or the early Qing dynasty. This was a period in Chinese history marked by clear social stratification, and not everyone could afford such an elaborate burial. For this reason, researchers hypothesize that the remains may belong to a member of the nobility, or at the very least, someone from a wealthy and influential family with power and resources. What makes the story even more intriguing is the location where the tomb was found. The mountain where the coffin was discovered is associated with the Wang family, a lineage that once held significant influence in the region's history. This connection has sparked many questions. Could the man inside the coffin have been an important figure within the Wang family, or at least closely connected to this powerful clan? If so, every detail within the tomb could serve as a clue to reconstructing a historical picture blurred by time. There is more. During the examination of the coffin's contents, archaeologists also discovered a fan buried alongside the body. It may sound ordinary, but in ancient Chinese culture, a fan was far more than a daily accessory. It could symbolize education, scholarly refinement, or the social status of its owner. This fan may indicate that the man was a Confucian scholar, a government official, or someone of notable standing during the Ming to Qing period. Just imagine, if that fan could speak, what stories might it tell about its owner? That question remains unanswered. What is known is that immediately after this shocking discovery, all construction activity in the area was suspended. Specialists were brought in to conduct a full excavation and in-depth research. The goal was not only to identify the mysterious man and learn about his life, but also to decode burial customs, coffin-making techniques, and the distinctive cultural elements of the Ming to Qing era. A body remaining intact after hundreds of years is not only astonishing, it raises many questions. What allowed this body to withstand the destructive force of time? Who was this man? What kind of life did he live, and why was he buried with such honor and care? Perhaps this ancient tomb is not merely a final resting place for one individual, but a gateway to the past where every detail is waiting to be deciphered. And who knows, beneath the soil of Hunan, there may still be other stories quietly waiting for the day they are told. Do you think that's possible? Ancient town re-emerges in an oasis after 4,400 years of disappearance. During an archaeological expedition in Khaybar, a rare, lush, and legendary oasis in northwestern Saudi Arabia, an international research team led by Guillaume Charloux of the French National Center for Scientific Research, CNRS, made a remarkable discovery: an ancient, previously unknown town called Al-Nata. Covering an area of approximately 3.7 acres, Al-Nata is unmistakably an urban remnant, a quiet whisper from the Bronze Age, echoing from more than 4,000 years in the distant past. Al-Nata appears like a moment frozen in time. This small yet fortified town was once home to around 500 inhabitants, with a tightly organized social structure. Within its sturdy defensive walls lay residential areas and a central district, often described as the heart of the community. Although it was not as large or monumental as contemporary cities in Mesopotamia or the Levant, the very existence of Al-Nata in the middle of an arid desert reveals a crucial chapter in the evolution of human society: the transition from nomadic life to more complex, permanent settlement. According to archaeologists, Al-Nata is a prime example of what they call slow urbanism, a form of urban development that did not emerge rapidly or explosively, but instead took shape gradually, closely adapted to the harsh environment and living conditions of the region. It represents the earliest and clearest evidence that ancient populations in the Khaybar area had begun to build stable, organized communities connected to other fortified settlements nearby, as if a small network of early proto-kingdoms were quietly taking root in the desert. What makes this discovery especially significant is the transitional nature of Al-Nata. According to a study published in the scientific journal PLOS 1, Al-Nata was not merely an ancient settlement, but a symbol of a major civilizational turning point, from a nomadic lifestyle dependent on herding and seasonal movement to a fixed life within defensive walls, marked by clearer social organization and the early formation of political structures. In this sense, Al-Nata serves as a vital link between a more primitive past and the future of urbanization in northwestern Arabia. More than just an ancient town, Al-Nata is living proof that small desert communities once dreamed of stability, learned to plan their lives, and laid the very first bricks for future civilizations. It tells the story of humanity's evolutionary journey, from a precarious, seasonal existence to the foundations of the earliest cities. And it is here, in Khaybar, where sand and time have conspired to guard their secrets, that Al-Nata has risen again from the earth, standing as a witness to a lost era that was never truly forgotten. 30,000-year-old images and the secrets of prehistoric funeral rituals in a mysterious cave in France. Dear friends, the world is vast and diverse. There are places that are beautiful and poetic, but there are also places where, the moment you step inside, even the bravest modern human instinctively lowers their voice, sometimes even holds their breath, not out of fear that the ground might collapse, but out of fear of disturbing a world that has been asleep for tens of thousands of years. The Grotte de Cusack, located in the Dordogne region of southwestern France, is exactly such a place. At first glance, many people might assume it is just another prehistoric cave like Lascaux, famous for its ancient paintings. But no, Cusack goes far beyond that. This site contains not only art, but also the dead. Grotte de Cusack is considered one of the most important archaeological sites in Europe. Inside the cave, scientists have documented more than 800 engravings spread across the rock walls. These images depict animals, human figures, and abstract forms, and are believed to date back approximately 25,000 to 30,000 years. Just imagining that prehistoric humans, still living as hunter-gatherers, were already creating such sophisticated artistic expressions naturally leads to a question. Why did they create this art, and who was it meant for? But that question only scratches the surface of what makes Grotte de Cusack truly extraordinary, and even shocking to archaeologists. Deep within the cave, an international research team led by Professor Jacques Joubert of the University of Bordeaux discovered the skeletal remains of at least 6 individuals. What is remarkable is that these remains date to the same period as the engravings themselves, around 25,000 to 30,000 years ago. This makes Cusack one of the very rare sites where prehistoric humans both created art and buried their dead within the same space. Imagine that for a moment. A cave that served as both an art gallery and a cemetery. What does that tell us? Could this cave have held sacred meaning? Were the engravings directly connected to funeral rituals or spiritual beliefs? And why did they choose this specific place to lay their dead to rest? These are difficult questions, and finding answers is anything but easy. According to Dr. Aline Schatzmans, a researcher from the University of Wollongong and the University of Bordeaux, the project at Grotta de Cusack faces extraordinary challenges. Beyond the usual difficulties of archaeological research, the team is bound by extremely strict regulations. The cave is classified as a National Heritage Site, meaning that no excavation is allowed and nothing inside may be moved or altered. All research must be conducted in place under highly restrictive conditions. As if that were not enough, carbon dioxide levels inside the cave rise to dangerous levels during certain times of the year. For safety reasons, archaeologists are only able to work inside the cave for about 3 months each year. That limited window forces the team to carefully plan every step, every measurement, and every observation, because each entry into the cave is a rare opportunity. Yet what worries scientists the most is something invisible: microorganisms. Even the smallest foreign biological agent could damage the cave's surfaces and the ancient engravings. For this reason, every time researchers enter the cave, they must wear sterilized protective clothing and rubber boots, effectively turning themselves into temporary guests who leave no trace behind, so as not to harm this pristine environment. Another haunting discovery lies in the way the human remains were arranged. The bodies were not scattered randomly, but deliberately moved and placed in 3 distinct locations within the cave. This strongly suggests the existence of a complex, organized funeral ritual, one that was likely deeply connected to spiritual beliefs. For the communities that once lived here, the dead were not separated from the living. Instead, they remained part of a sacred world within the cave. In the years ahead, the research team aims to continue unraveling the relationship between death, art, and belief in prehistoric societies. Because Grotta de Cusack is not just a cave, it is a rare doorway into how our distant ancestors understood life, death, and forces they believed to exist beyond humanity itself. Ghost Castle, atop a Turkish mountain, reveals 2,800 years of the Urartian Empire. Amid the rugged mountains of eastern Van Province, Turkey, archaeologists have recently uncovered a so-called ghost castle that had been buried for nearly 3 millennia. Perched high on a rocky mountaintop where clouds and winds constantly swirl, the site is completely isolated from the world below. Without these recent excavations, few would have imagined that such a massive structure once existed at that elevation, let alone one built by a powerful ancient empire. The archaeological team from Van Yüzüncü Yıl University reports that what they uncovered is not a collection of scattered ruins, but the remains of a solid, well-fortified castle that once served as a strategic stronghold. Based on its design, construction materials, and commanding location, researchers have confirmed that the fortress belonged to the Kingdom of Urartu, also known as the Ancient Kingdom of Van, a formidable empire that dominated the region for centuries before the Common Era. Because excavations are still in their early stages, it is too soon to determine the castle's full size. Even so, what has already been revealed is enough to inspire awe. Thick defensive walls built from limestone and sandstone show that this was no temporary structure. Every element reflects durability and careful planning, hallmarks of a true military fortress. Most striking of all, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a massive water reservoir with a capacity of approximately 27,700 gallons. This alone offers valuable insight into the scale of occupation inside the castle, as well as the number of people who once lived and worked there. Preliminary analysis suggests the castle dates back roughly 2,800 years and appears to have been in use for several centuries. Its history did not end with the Urartian period, however. Evidence indicates that the site was reused during the medieval era, underscoring just how strategically important its location was. Across different dynasties and time periods, people continued to occupy and adapt the fortress rather than abandon it. To understand how the Urartians were able to construct such imposing castles, one must look at their civilization as a whole. The Urartian Empire was situated in a region favored by nature, a fertile plateau nestled among harsh, rocky mountains. Abundant natural water sources supported stable agriculture. In addition, the area was rich in valuable mineral resources, including gold, silver, copper, lead, and iron. These natural advantages provided the Urartians with lasting prosperity over many centuries. Beyond natural wealth, the region also lay near major ancient trade routes. With desirable goods to exchange, the Urartians quickly grew wealthy, and with that wealth, they invested heavily in large-scale defensive architecture. Castles built atop high mountains not only projected power, but also functioned as near-impenetrable fortresses, protecting the kingdom from distant enemies. Yet prosperity itself can become an invitation to conflict. Over the centuries, this fertile and resource-rich land attracted the ambitions of rival empires. Continuous warfare gradually eroded the strength of Urartian civilization, and eventually, around 590 BCE, the once glorious empire collapsed at the hands of conquerors whose identities are no longer clearly recorded in history. Today, the mountaintop castle stands only as silent ruins, surrounded by wind and stone. But in that silence lies a long story, one of power, wealth, and the price paid by an ancient civilization. If those stone walls could speak, perhaps they would tell us of days of glory, and of the moment the Urartian Empire vanished from the flow of history. 2,000-year-old mummified girl, and the shocking mystery inside. In the quiet halls of the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum in San Jose, California, a place that preserves thousands of years of memories from the legendary civilization along the Nile, a small life lies asleep within the depths of history. It is the mummy of a little girl who was only 5 years old, named Sherry by scientists, a name that in ancient Egyptian means the little one. Although her real name has been lost to time, the layers of linen wrappings, her round earrings, the necklace around her neck, and the protective amulet resting on her chest all make one thing painfully clear. She was deeply loved, and her passing was a profound loss to her family. Sherry lived more than 2,000 years ago, during the period when Roman rule extended over Egypt. According to modern medical analysis, her death may have been caused by dysentery, a disease that was common at the time, yet extremely dangerous for young children. Though she was only a tiny life within the vast flow of history, Sherry has become the starting point of a remarkable journey of discovery, made possible by the combination of archaeology and today's most advanced technologies. Beginning in 2015, researchers at the museum conducted CT scans to examine the interior of the mummy without damaging any of the preserved materials. The true breakthrough came, however, when they applied modern 3D scanning technology using the Artec EVA, a handheld scanner capable of capturing highly detailed, full-color surface images that CT scans alone cannot provide. What makes this achievement so extraordinary is that, without ever touching the mummy, every contour and surface texture could be recreated with striking realism. Data from both scanning methods, CT and 3D, were then integrated into a complete digital model using specialized software developed by Volume Graphics. The result is an incredibly detailed and lifelike 3D mummy model, bringing viewers closer to Sherry than ever before, not just visually, but emotionally and intellectually as well. Thanks to this model, museum visitors are no longer confined to looking through glass cases under dim lighting. Instead, they can hold an iPad and move around the mummy virtually, watching scan layers appear directly on the screen. Every part of the body and every burial object comes vividly to life, as if you were truly touching a story forgotten for more than 2 millennia. Yet the most important achievement here is not the technology itself, but how these advances allow us to listen to voices from the past. Sherry is no longer an anonymous mummy resting silently in the shadows. She has become an individual with her own story, the story of a child lost to illness, yet preserved by future generations with deep respect and care. Christoph Reinhardt, CEO of Volume Graphics, has shared that this new scanning technology not only opens new doors for archaeology, but also represents a major advance in fields such as biology, geology, and paleontology. It allows us to gain profound insight into objects once thought to be completely inaccessible. Sherry, the little one, through the power of technology and the dedication of scientists, has become a symbol of how the modern world can connect with the ancient past and how human knowledge can ensure that memory never truly fades. And sometimes, a sleep lasting 2,000 years becomes the strongest whisper of all, reminding us that behind every mummy lies a story waiting to be told, and that every soul, no matter how small, deserves to be heard. Intact, Nazi aircraft discovered on the seafloor. Some secrets of history do not lie on land, but instead sleep silently beneath cold, dark waters. And off the coast of Rhodes, Greece, on the deep blue floor of the Aegean Sea, a witness from World War II has unexpectedly emerged, proving exactly that. It is a Nazi-German Ju-52 transport aircraft, resting motionless at a depth of approximately 243 feet, preserved in a condition so remarkable that it has astonished even seasoned experts. After spending decades hidden in the darkness of the ocean, this machine of war has retained nearly its original form, as if frozen in time. The aircraft was discovered by a professional diver who used GPS equipment to precisely record its location and documented the entire find on video as verified evidence. When the footage was released, many viewers felt a chill, because what lay before them was not a heap of rusted wreckage, but a Ju-52, the primary transport aircraft of Nazi Germany, resting at an angle on the seafloor, as if it had crashed only yesterday. According to published information, the Ju-52 was found off the coast of Rhodes, an area that had been under Nazi control since 1943. This immediately raised a series of questions among researchers. What mission was the aircraft carrying out at the time? Was it transporting troops, delivering military equipment, or conducting an emergency flight during a particularly intense phase of the war? To this day, no official records have been found documenting the final flight of this Ju-52. Even more mysterious is the cause of the crash itself. No one knows whether the aircraft was shot down, suffered a mechanical failure, or was forced to make an emergency landing in the open sea. There is also no information regarding how many people were on board at the time of the incident. These unanswered questions transform the submerged aircraft from a simple archaeological discovery into a missing piece of wartime history. Upon closer inspection, experts were even more astonished. Despite having spent decades submerged in salt water, the Ju-52's structure remains largely intact. The main fuselage is still present, and the machine guns remain in their original positions, as if ready to fire. Most striking of all, the cockpit control panel still preserves the aircraft's final readings, freezing the last moments of its fatal journey in time. Only the front engine section and the cockpit windshield appear to be missing or severely damaged. This extraordinary level of preservation has led many to wonder, what allowed the aircraft to survive so well beneath the sea? It is likely that the depth of 243 feet, with minimal light and limited human disturbance, unintentionally served as a natural vault, protecting the war machine from the ravages of time. In this case, the ocean was not merely a place of burial, but a place of memory. Naturally, when a military aircraft is found submerged at sea, speculation arises about whether it might have been carrying treasure, secret documents, or undisclosed cargo. As of now, there is no evidence to suggest that this Ju-52 was transporting anything unusual. Still, archaeologists and experts continue their investigations, hoping that within the wreck, or in the surrounding area, additional clues may emerge about the aircraft's final mission. Perhaps one day in the not-too-distant future, all the answers surrounding this mysterious plane will finally come to light. The world's oldest runestone and its mysterious messages. In the heart of the cold lands of Northern Europe, where snow blankets, rolling hills, and history seems to sleep beneath ancient layers of earth, a groundbreaking discovery has awakened memories that stretch back thousands of years to the age of the Vikings. On January 17th, Norwegian archaeologists announced a find considered a major turning point in the study of European writing systems, the world's oldest known runestone, dating back nearly 2,000 years. This discovery has not only stunned the archaeological community, but has also raised a wave of new questions about the origins of language, civilization, and the long unsolved mysteries of ancient Nordic cultures. The stone itself is not large, measuring roughly 12 by 12 inches, and is made of brown sandstone, shaped into a rough square. It was excavated in late 2021 in the Tyrifjorden area, a quiet region northwest of Oslo, Norway's capital. What makes this stone extraordinary, however, is not its size, but the runic inscription carved into its surface, a seemingly simple line of text that carries with it an entire forgotten chapter of history. When transliterated into the Latin alphabet, the inscription reads Idibarug. To this day, researchers have not been able to determine its exact meaning. It may be the name of the person buried in the grave, a prayer, or perhaps even an ancient code that has yet to be deciphered. Through carbon dating of bone fragments and wood found within the burial site, scientists have determined that the stone dates to somewhere between AD 1 and AD 250. This makes it the earliest known evidence of runic writing ever discovered, pushing back previous timelines that suggested runes first appeared around the 3rd or 4th century AD. Once again, history must be rewritten, and our understanding of the origins and development of writing in Europe must be reconsidered. According to Crystal Zilmer, a leading runic scholar at the Museum of Cultural History in Oslo, this stone is a truly one-of-a-kind discovery. It is not merely an archaeological artifact, but a whisper from the ancestors of Scandinavia to future generations, an essential piece in the broader picture of Viking civilization, long shrouded in myth and legend. Runes represent the earliest writing system used by the Vikings and other Germanic peoples across Scandinavia. Unlike many cultures that wrote on paper or parchment, runes were typically carved directly into stone, large, raw blocks erected at burial sites as a form of memorial and sacred communication with the afterlife. Yet very few runestones can rival the age and preservation of this find. The existence of the inscription on the Tyrifjorden stone has shattered long-held assumptions and opened new directions for the study of ancient Nordic history. If runic writing truly emerged at the very beginning of the Common Era, it suggests that Nordic societies developed written language far earlier than previously believed, early enough to be compared with other advanced civilizations of the same period. And perhaps, somewhere beneath the frozen soil of the north, many more stones still lie waiting, silent witnesses to the past, ready to be uncovered and to illuminate even more of history's darkest corners. 12 dragons beneath a Chinese lake. It all began in May 1977, when Sichuan County, under the jurisdiction of Nanyang City in Henan Province, was struck by an unprecedented and severe drought. The ground cracked open, vegetation withered, and rivers dried up completely. By October of the same year, the water level of the Dongjiangkou Reservoir dropped dramatically, exposing a sight never seen before. Longshan Mountain, which had been submerged underwater for many years, suddenly emerged from the drained lake. It was there that a group of children from Xiasi village, while playing nearby, heard strange noises and discovered a deep pit that had unexpectedly appeared. Inside, faint light reflected off numerous ceramic vessels. Frightened, the children dared not enter and instead reported the discovery to the adults. Villagers soon gathered, driven by curiosity and hope of finding valuables. However, village chief Liu, aware of the importance of protecting cultural heritage, quickly sealed off the site and reported it to the county's cultural authorities. Thus began a difficult and dangerous excavation, led by Zheng Xixian and an experienced archaeological team. The excavation faced constant challenges as the reservoir water level repeatedly rose and fell, washing away progress again and again. The team eventually changed tactics, adopting a guerrilla-style excavation approach, prioritizing large tombs with the highest concentration of valuable artifacts. On several occasions, archaeologists even risked their lives by diving deep into the reservoir to avoid missing this once-in-a-lifetime historical opportunity. After a year of perseverance, their efforts were rewarded. The team uncovered tens of thousands of artifacts dating back to the spring and autumn period of the Zhou dynasty, all belonging to the Longcheng Mausoleum complex, a millennia-old treasure trove hidden beneath water and mud. Among these discoveries, Tomb A2 stood out as the most extraordinary. It contained nearly 7,000 jade pieces, along with musical instruments, chariots, weapons, and ritual objects. Yet the most shocking find was the discovery of 12 bronze dragons, buried deep beneath layers of mud and water. Tragically, most of the dragons had been smashed, likely by tomb robbers during the Han Dynasty who, unable to remove them, chose to destroy them instead. After careful examination, experts determined that the 12 dragons were originally part of a rare bronze ritual wine table, cast from green bronze, a material reserved exclusively for the nobility. The The task of restoring this shattered masterpiece was entrusted to Wang Chengqing, a renowned restoration expert from Henan province. At over 60 years old, Wang and his assistant devoted more than 1,000 days and nights working through 26 complex restoration processes to bring the artifact back to life. When the restoration was completed in early 1984, it stunned the world. The artifact, known as the bronze wine table with cloud patterns, Yunwen Tong Jin, is considered living proof of a three-dimensional lost wax casting technique believed to have disappeared more than 1,000 years ago. Its significance goes far beyond artistic value. It fundamentally rewrote history by pushing the origins of this advanced casting technique back from the Tang Dynasty to the Spring and Autumn period. The table stands approximately 11.3 inches high, measures over 3.3 feet in length, and weighs more than 198 pounds. It is powerfully designed, encircled by 12 dragons, each uniquely fierce and imposing, symbolizing the supreme authority of the ancient state of Chu. Based on inscriptions carved into the table, archaeologists identified it as a burial object belonging to Zi Gung, a powerful prime minister during the reign of King Kong of Chu. The value of the Yunwen Tong Jin is considered priceless. In 2002, China's National Cultural Heritage Administration listed it among 64 national treasures prohibited from being exhibited abroad. Experts estimate its value could exceed 10 billion yuan, roughly 1.4 billion US dollars. It is not merely an artifact, but a living treasure, embodying the history, technology, and spirit of a magnificent civilization long buried in the relentless flow of time. The Olmec stone heads, a mystery that has challenged humanity for thousands of years. In a hidden corner of human history, deep within the jungles of present-day Mexico, there exist strange relics that have puzzled scientists for decades. They are not the Egyptian pyramids, nor are they the Moai statues of Easter Island, yet their mystery and allure are no less compelling. These are the colossal stone heads of the Olmec civilization, one of the oldest and least understood civilizations in the Americas. Imagine standing before a massive stone block weighing nearly 20 tons, rising to a height of about 11.5 feet, carved into a human head with remarkably lifelike and detailed features. What makes this even more astonishing is that the stone used to create these heads does not originate from where they were discovered. Instead, it was quarried from the Tuxtlas Mountains, located more than 185 miles away, an extraordinary distance for any ancient civilization. So how did the Olmec people, who lived more than 3,000 years ago, transport such enormous stone blocks without wheels, without metal tools, and without any form of modern machinery? According to expert estimates, moving a single stone of this size would have required more than 1,500 people pulling continuously for 3 to 4 months, an almost unimaginable logistical effort given the harsh conditions of the time. And that was only the beginning. After successfully transporting the stone, they still had to carve it into a human likeness, a task demanding extraordinary precision and skill. This leads to yet another unanswered question. What tools did they use to sculpt these heads? This remains one of the greatest mysteries modern science has yet to solve. To this day, there is no evidence that the Olmec possessed metal tools or advanced stone-cutting technology capable of achieving such accuracy. So what enabled them to create masterpieces that have endured for thousands of years? The discovery of the Olmec stone heads not only shocked the archaeological world, but also overturned long-held assumptions about the origins of Mesoamerican civilizations. For many years, most anthropologists believed the Maya were the first to lay the foundations of civilization in the region. However, archaeological evidence has shown that it was the Olmec, not the Maya, who were the true parent civilization of Mesoamerica. The Olmec not only produced monumental and mysterious stone artworks, but also built large cities and impressive pyramids at a very early stage, even before the founding of Rome and earlier than the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. This reveals that the Olmec were not merely skilled sculptors, but also highly advanced builders and engineers, far more sophisticated than we once believed. This raises an intriguing question. Did the Olmec possess a lost technology or a form of knowledge that modern humanity has yet to rediscover? Many theories have been proposed, ranging from assistance by extraterrestrial civilizations to the idea of an advanced prehistoric technology that once existed and then vanished. All of these remain speculative, shrouded in mystery. Yet regardless of how bold these theories may be, one fact is undeniable. The level of development achieved by the Olmec far exceeded what would be expected of their era. They demonstrated profound knowledge of astronomy, architecture, mathematics, and art. Their ability to coordinate the movement of stones weighing tens of tons, to carve intricate facial features and subtle expressions, reflects extraordinary intelligence, systematic thinking, and organizational skill, qualities rarely matched by other ancient civilizations. What makes the Olmec stone heads truly extraordinary is not just their size or craftsmanship, but the story behind them, a story forgotten, buried by time, yet still silently challenging our understanding today. They serve as a powerful reminder that there is still so much about the past we do not know, and that every new discovery has the potential to reshape how we view human history. Perhaps somewhere within those ancient ruins, there are still clues waiting to be uncovered, clues to a civilization that once flourished and that may have possessed secrets far ahead of its time. And when will we finally unlock those secrets? The answer may still lie deep beneath the earth, waiting to be awakened. Opening the tomb of a Chinese princess. Archaeologists were shocked to discover this secret inside. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Ancient History, a place where every inch of land and every stone can tell a story that has been sleeping for thousands of years. You know, there's a saying often shared among archaeologists: history is never truly dead, it is only waiting to be awakened by humanity. And the deeper we dig, the more we realize that the past is far from silent, unlike what we once believed. Just think about it. Beneath the seemingly ordinary ground we walk on every day, what might be hidden below? It could be an unrecorded tomb, an ancient city erased from the pages of history, or even traces of civilizations that textbooks have yet to mention. Broken pottery shards, decayed pieces of fabric, or lifeless blocks of stone. Sometimes these very fragments become the keys that completely overturn humanity's understanding of its own origins. That's why in today's video, we invite you to join us on a journey filled with curiosity and surprise. From the mysterious tomb of an ancient Chinese princess to secrets that continue to spark debate in legendary Egypt. From cities buried deep beneath the earth to fossils of creatures frozen for tens of thousands of years, as if time itself had never touched them. Each discovery not only tells the story of the past, but also raises questions that make us reflect on the present and even the future that lies ahead. So, are you ready? If you are, then sit tight, open your eyes wide, and hold on to your curiosity as we dive together into our very first discovery, starting right now. Dilapidated 43 square feet tomb that hid imperial-level treasures, the true identity of its owner, left archaeologists frozen in shock. When it comes to ancient tombs excavated in China, people usually think of massive burial complexes, deep and winding corridors, and thousands of luxurious grave goods buried alongside emperors and nobles. Just look at the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang in Shanxi province, and it becomes clear that the scale of a tomb often reflects the status and power of its owner. Yet, on that very same land in Shanxi, there existed a tomb so small it was almost unbelievable. Covering an area of only about 43 square feet, it was shabby and plain, and yet hidden inside were artifacts that left the entire archaeological community stunned. The story began in the 1990s, when local residents accidentally uncovered an ancient tomb during a construction project. In Shanxi, discoveries like this are not uncommon, so as soon as the report came in, archaeologists rushed to the site to investigate. At first, all the signs suggested that this might be a large-scale tomb. The excavation team even brought in heavy machinery, fully prepared for a major dig. However, as layers of soil were gradually removed, their initial excitement quickly turned into disappointment. Before them was nothing more than a tiny tomb, roughly 43 square feet in size, with a crude structure, exactly the kind of burial typically associated with ordinary civilians. With years of experience, the experts knew all too well that tombs like this almost never contain valuable grave goods. Some even suggested halting the excavation to save time and effort. Still, a few members of the team refused to give up. They believed that even a small tomb might hold something worth studying, and that decision, to open the coffin, changed everything. When the coffin was finally opened, the scene inside left the experts speechless. Instead of emptiness, they found a large number of artifacts piled on top of one another. In total, more than 100 burial items were documented, including objects made of gold, jade, and even iron, materials completely inconsistent with an ordinary person's grave. Among them, 2 items were considered truly priceless. The first was a sword with an iron blade and a hilt crafted from gold, a combination reserved exclusively for the highest ranks of nobility. The second was an exquisitely made crystal ornament, rare and almost never seen in common tombs. Based on the materials and craftsmanship alone, the experts were certain these could not have belonged to an ordinary individual. Radiocarbon dating and historical analysis were immediately conducted. The results showed that these 2 treasures dated back at least to the Western Han Dynasty and possibly even earlier. This raised a major question. What kind of prince, noble, or general would choose to be buried in such a small, dilapidated tomb? Strangely enough, there were no inscriptions, records, or markers inside the tomb to indicate the identity of its owner. Research soon reached a dead end and remained stalled for quite some time. Unwilling to give up, the experts shifted their focus to a detailed study of the patterns, styles, and manufacturing techniques of each artifact, comparing them with historical records. Eventually, their final conclusion shocked many. The owner of the tomb was neither a prince nor a general, but an ordinary man who lived during the Western Han Dynasty. However, this ordinary man had a very unusual identity. He was a tomb robber. According to researchers, this individual had somehow managed to break into the tomb of Qin Jinggong and steal numerous priceless treasures. But because these artifacts were so distinctive and easily recognizable, he dared not sell them. In the end, they were buried alongside him in his own small, humble grave. No one could have imagined that more than 2,000 years later, it would be these stolen treasures that led archaeologists to uncover the tomb of a grave robber, revealing an ironic and almost unbelievable story from history. Pretty fascinating, isn't it? 1,000-year-old Chinese princess's tomb that forced an entire archaeological team to evacuate. In June 1985, while quarrying stone on a mountain in Tongliao City, Eastern Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region, China, workers unexpectedly uncovered a stone wall. At first, they assumed it was merely a large underground rock and paid little attention to it. However, as they continued digging deeper, they noticed that the stone slabs were arranged with striking precision and bore clear carved markings. Realizing they had likely encountered a burial site, the workers immediately notified the Inner Mongolia Institute of Archaeology. After an archaeological team was dispatched to investigate, the institute confirmed that the workers had uncovered the entrance to an ancient tomb more than 1,000 years old, dating back to the Liao dynasty. This tomb was far from simple. It featured a complete stone mausoleum system with corridors, burial chambers, and side chambers on both the left and right. The entire structure measured approximately 54 feet. Based on this elaborate design, archaeologists concluded that it had to be a royal tomb. The excavation team was astonished to discover a stone staircase carved directly into the steep cliff face of Tuerjishan Mountain, leading down to a spacious burial chamber. Inside, they found a large quantity of burial goods, including gold and silver objects, lacquerware, pearls, agate, crystal, amber, and fine silk. Alongside the coffins were more than 200 artifacts, all valuable burial items such as crystal cups, silver-plated saddles, gold finger guards, gold bells, and daggers with crystal handles. Remarkably, these objects were exceptionally well preserved. The most striking artifact in the tomb was a blood-red cypress wood coffin, exquisitely carved with phoenix motifs and preserved in excellent condition. The wooden base supporting the coffin had also been painted in vivid colors. However, due to long-term burial in damp, silty soil, much of the paint on the coffin base had faded away. The archaeological team had to work together to lift the extremely heavy lid of the pine wood coffin. As the lid was slowly opened, 2 bodies wearing strange gold masks gradually came into view. The remains were relatively well preserved and wrapped in multiple layers of silk garments. Out of respect for the deceased, the experts did not immediately remove the gold masks. Instead, they decided to use the most advanced technology available at the time to scan the remains in order to gather more information about the tomb's occupants. However, just as the team was preparing to transfer the bodies to a research facility, a mysterious white liquid suddenly began leaking from a gap inside the coffin, flowing out in increasing amounts. Upon seeing this, the experts urgently shouted warnings and evacuated everyone from the burial chamber. Their quick escape was crucial, as the experts knew that the Khitan people had a custom of pouring mercury over the bodies of the deceased to preserve them. Mercury is extremely toxic. The large quantity of mercury sealed inside the coffin explained why the 2,000-year-old bodies had not decomposed. However, inhaling high concentrations of mercury vapor can cause severe poisoning, convulsions, or even sudden death. As a result, the team was forced to immediately evacuate the area. Eventually, the remains were transferred to a museum for decontamination and DNA testing. The DNA results shocked scholars even further. In addition to the precious carved wooden coffins and lavish burial goods, archaeologists also discovered a royal-style epitaph tablet, a hallmark of imperial burials. By analyzing the inscription alongside records from the history of the Liao dynasty, the official chronicle of the Liao dynasty, which ruled from 907 to 1125, experts confirmed that this was the tomb of Princess Chen Guo of the Liao dynasty, a member of the Khitan royal family and the younger sister of Emperor Liao Taizu. The princess died at just 18 years old and was buried together with her husband, who was also her uncle, reflecting the practice of close-kin marriage within the royal family at the time. Historical records do not specify the exact cause of their deaths, only noting that they died from illness. Chinese historical texts describe Princess Chen Guo as a woman of great virtue, beloved by both the emperor and the people. Because of this, she was granted a grand and elaborate tomb. During burial, both the princess and her husband were fitted with gold facial masks, intricately carved to reflect their facial features. Wearing masks for the deceased was a unique Khitan custom. These gold masks were intended to preserve the dignified appearance of the dead, even after facial features had decomposed. The gold masks and burial goods found in Princess Chen Guo's tomb are the first fully intact artifacts ever recovered from the Liao dynasty. These discoveries became priceless historical treasures, helping to fill major gaps in knowledge about a once powerful dynasty that had long been overlooked. According to experts, a total of 3,227 valuable burial items were excavated from Princess Chen Guo's tomb. Among them was a crystal cup fitted with a gold chain. At first, archaeologists were both confused and excited, as they could not believe that what appeared to be a modern-style glass cup had been found in a 1,000-year-old tomb. Some even speculated that it might have been left behind by tomb robbers. However, a thorough investigation revealed no signs of looting. Further analysis showed that the cup was actually made of crystal, not modern glass. The crystal cup found in the Liao dynasty tomb is considered a counterpart to a crystal cup from the Warring States period, excavated in 1990. The cup was exquisitely crafted, with two small holes along its side designed to attach a gold chain. What astonished experts even more was that the artifact remained almost perfectly intact after nearly 1,000 years underground. Crafting objects from crystal is far from simple. Yet this cup was produced with dimensions and proportions remarkably similar to modern cups and glasses. This clearly demonstrates that crystalworking technology during the Liao dynasty had reached a highly advanced level, reflecting the intelligence and creativity of people at the time. Although experts have not yet determined exactly how ancient craftsmen produced this crystal cup, its discovery, along with the other precious artifacts in Princess Chen Guo's tomb, holds enormous archaeological value and plays a crucial role in the study of Liao dynasty history. The Liao dynasty crystal cup with a gold chain was designated a national treasure immediately after its excavation. Today, it is preserved and displayed at the Inner Mongolia Museum, China. After seeing this remarkable artifact in person, many visitors can't help but feel that time travel might actually be real. So if you ever have the chance, it's definitely worth visiting to see it for yourself. The Pharaoh's Tomb. Without a mummy that shook. Abydos, when a king was suspected of being a tomb robber in ancient Egyptian history. Amid the arid desert of the ancient city of Abydos, once regarded as sacred ground where Egypt's earliest pharaohs were laid to rest, archaeologists unearthed a mystery that left scholars stunned. Not because of the familiar splendor of a royal tomb, but because of the haunting emptiness found inside it. A pharaoh who lived more than 3,600 years ago, named Seneb-K, emerged from the shadows of history in a way no one had anticipated. As you may know, Abydos had served as a royal necropolis since the early dynastic period. At el-Ka'ab, just north of the city, archaeologists previously discovered the burial site of Pharaoh Narmer, often described as the Qin Shi Huang of ancient Egypt, the ruler who unified Upper and Lower Egypt. In addition, the walls of the mortuary temple of Pharaoh Seti, the first bear a hieroglyphic list of the kings of Abydos, an invaluable historical record for studying Egypt's earliest dynasties and the 19th dynasty. Yet Seneb K's name was entirely absent from these well-known records until his tomb was excavated. Dr. Joseph Wegner, along with an archaeological team from Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities and the University of Pennsylvania, identified this mysterious pharaoh through a small but crucial detail: an oval-shaped inscription bearing the name Seneb K, found on both the coffin and the tomb walls. The tomb consisted of 4 burial chambers and a limestone coffin, decorated with paintings of ancient Egyptian deities such as Nut, the sky goddess, Nephthys, and Selket, the scorpion goddess who protected the dead. On either side of the once gold-plated coffin were carvings of the goddess Isis, accompanied by inscriptions proclaiming Seneb K's supreme authority as the son of Horus, king of Upper and Lower Egypt. But this grandeur vanished abruptly. When the tomb was opened, all that remained was devastation. The burial treasures had disappeared without a trace. The gold leaf covering the walls and coffin had been scraped away. Even the pharaoh's mummy had been violently torn apart by tomb robbers. Seneb K's remains were reduced to fragmented bones, forcing scientists to reconstruct his body using modern technology. Through this analysis, researchers determined that he stood about 5 feet 9 inches tall and died at nearly 50 years of age. Not a young age by ancient standards. Although the tomb itself was not large, it revealed another controversial detail. Archaeologists discovered clay jars that once held internal organs, now heavily decomposed, suggesting that the mummification process may have been poorly executed or possibly never fully completed. This made Seneb K an exceptionally rare case among Egyptian pharaohs. The mystery deepened further. In the summer of 2013, Professor Wegner's team continued excavations south of Abydos and uncovered a massive red quartzite sarcophagus weighing approximately 66 US tons. After nearly 6 months of study, a shocking truth emerged. The sarcophagus did not belong to Seneb K. It dated to a much earlier period and had originally been made for Pharaoh Sobekotep IV of the 13th dynasty, around 1780 BCE. Notably, Sobekotep IV's own tomb was located nearby. This raised an unsettling question. Could it be that Pharaoh Seneb K, ruling during a time of political decline and limited resources, had chosen to reuse the sarcophagus of a predecessor? In other words, could a pharaoh himself have become a tomb robber in the course of history? The answer remains uncertain. However, as excavations entered their final phase, numerous additional tombs gradually came to light, revealing the existence of an entire Abydos dynasty, a forgotten royal line that had vanished from history for more than 3,600 years. As Joseph Wegner noted, the greatest value of this discovery lies not merely in identifying an unknown pharaoh, but in restoring an entire lost dynasty to the historical record. And once again, ancient Egypt reminds us that the past still holds countless secrets, waiting patiently to be uncovered. The tomb of the only historically verified female general in Chinese history. Discoveries inside that left archaeologists speechless. In Chinese history, whenever people mention the image of a woman wearing armor and going into battle, names like Hua Mulan or Mu Guiying usually come to mind. Ironically, however, both of these well-known figures belong more to legend than to documented historical fact. In real history, female generals were extremely rare, so rare that many people believe they never truly existed. But did you know that there actually was a real female general who commanded armies, led troops into battle, held supreme military authority, and was clearly recorded in historical texts? Her name was Fu Hao. Fu Hao was one of the wives of King Wu Ding of the Shang dynasty, one of the most powerful rulers in ancient China. Among his many consorts, Fu Hao was the most favored, not only because of her beauty, but also because of her exceptional talent and rare strength of character. At first, Wu Ding married Fu Hao purely for her appearance, completely unaware that this woman possessed military abilities far beyond imagination. Everything changed when the kingdom faced a grave crisis. the Chang tribe launched a sudden invasion, posing a serious threat to the security of the Shang dynasty. In this desperate situation, Fu Hao requested permission to lead the army into battle. What shocked the entire royal court was that she not only repelled the enemy forces, but achieved a decisive and resounding victory. From that moment on, Wu Ding placed his complete trust in Fu Hao, granting her command over the entire military and even supreme authority on the battlefield. A woman holding the military fate of an entire nation in her hands was something almost unheard of in ancient Chinese history. Tragically, Fu Hao's life was heartbreakingly short. Some records suggest that she died before the age of 30, possibly as a result of jealousy and intrigue from other consorts within the treacherous environment of the royal harem. Her death plunged Wu Ding into deep grief for a long time. To honor and remember his wife, who was both his beloved consort and his great general, Wu Ding ordered the construction of a fortified tomb and held an exceptionally grand funeral. Over thousands of years, Fu Hao's tomb gradually faded into obscurity until it was eventually rediscovered by archaeologists. And the moment the tomb was opened left everyone in stunned silence. Inside were not only countless precious treasures, but also a deeply disturbing detail: the skeletal remains of 10 people buried alongside the female general. Experts determined that these were live burials, individuals who were buried alive at the time of the tomb owner's death. Even more horrifying, 4 of them were children. Inscriptions and ancient writings found within the tomb suggest that Fu Hao may have died during a period of political turmoil when internal rebellion and power struggles were taking place within the Shang court. However, the reason why 10 people were buried alive with her remains unexplained to this day. Was this a ritual sacrifice of the era, or a symbolic act meant to reflect the female general's immense power and status? While the true explanation remains a mystery, one fact is undeniable. Fu Hao was the first and one of the very few real female generals in Chinese history. She personally led troops into battle many times, commanded soldiers against hostile forces, and returned victorious every single time. Her tomb is not merely a burial site, but a powerful testament to a chapter in history when women did not stand behind the front lines. They stood at the very forefront of war. What do you think about that? Do you know any other details about the story of this powerful woman from ancient China? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below so everyone can join the discussion. The world's oldest wine cellar, a 4,000-year-old discovery. More than 4,000 years ago, when metal was as precious as gold and literacy was still a privilege reserved for the elite, humans had already mastered the art of winemaking in a systematic, refined way, with clear formulas and techniques. That may sound hard to believe, doesn't it? Yet a groundbreaking discovery made in 2013 in Israel forced archaeologists to completely rethink the history of wine. That year, during an excavation at an ancient Canaanite palace, scientists uncovered a sealed room located on the western side of the central courtyard. Inside this room, they found 40 large clay jars, neatly arranged as if part of a deliberately organized storage system. These were not water jars nor decorative objects. Instead, they concealed a secret that had lain dormant for millennia. When residue samples from inside the jars were analyzed using mass spectrometry, the results left the entire research team stunned. Every single jar contained chemical compounds characteristic of wine. This meant that the find was not just a few random leftover containers, but an entire ancient wine cellar, now considered the oldest ever discovered in the world. But the story doesn't end there. What makes this discovery truly remarkable are the subtle differences found among the jars, which were nearly identical in shape and appearance. Within the wine residues, scientists detected traces of honey, tree resin, cedar oil, juniper, and possibly even mint, myrtle, and cinnamon. These additives were anything but accidental. They indicate that the Canaanites were not merely drinking wine for pleasure, but deliberately blending ingredients to enhance flavor and improve preservation. According to researchers, adding tree resin and cedar oil likely helped extend the wine's shelf life, while herbs and spices contributed aroma and taste. In other words, people in the Bronze Age already possessed complex winemaking recipes, comparable to those used by modern artisanal winemakers today. Hearing this, many people might wonder, could the art of winemaking have emerged far earlier than we ever imagined? The answer is yes. According to Science Daily, between roughly 1900 and 1600 BCE, wine played a vital role in the lives of people across the Mediterranean and Near East. It was not only consumed at feasts, but also used in religious rituals, diplomacy, and major ceremonial occasions. Ironically, however, archaeological evidence of wine from this period is extremely rare. That is precisely why the discovery of the Canaanite wine cellar is considered such a valuable missing piece, one that helps fill a historical gap spanning centuries. More importantly, this find reveals that the Canaanites possessed deep knowledge of plants, agriculture, and natural chemistry. They understood which plants created aroma, which helped preserve wine, and how to combine them to produce a drink that was both flavorful and long-lasting. This also reflects a sophisticated economy in which grape cultivation, wine production, and distribution had become an essential part of society. An ancient wine cellar, 40 clay jars, silent for 4,000 years, and a discovery that forces us to see the past through a different lens. Perhaps our ancestors were never as primitive as we once believed. A 10-million-year-old fossil with horns that sent a chill through the Tatacoa Desert. In the arid Tatacoa Desert of Colombia, a place that was once a lush network of rivers and lakes millions of years ago, scientists have uncovered a creature that sends shivers down the spine of anyone who hears about it. It is not a dinosaur, nor a giant crocodile, but a turtle. And before you picture the gentle turtles we're familiar with today, think again, because what was unearthed here is truly an armored aquatic monster. Tatacoa has long been known as a graveyard of prehistoric water beasts. And once again, that reputation has been confirmed with the discovery of the largest turtle fossil ever known to science. Researchers identified the specimen as Stupendemys geographicus, a giant prehistoric turtle that once dominated the rivers of South America. This newly discovered individual is not only larger than previously known examples, but is considered the largest turtle in the entire evolutionary history of turtles. According to research findings, Stupendemys geographicus could grow up to about 13 feet long and weigh approximately around 2,750 pounds. In other words, placed next to a compact car, this turtle would have been both larger and heavier. The fossil uncovered this time is remarkably well preserved, exceptionally complete and clearly defined, making the scientific community especially excited. Compared with specimens previously found in Brazil, Venezuela, and other parts of Colombia, this individual surpasses them all in both size and condition. But size alone isn't what left researchers in awe. On the massive shell, scientists discovered two sharp horn-like protrusions extending from either side of the shell near the neck. Paleontologist Edwin Cadena from Universidad del Rosario explained that this feature is the most valuable aspect of the discovery. These horns were not merely decorative. Deep scars were also found across the surface of the shell, as if it had endured violent impacts. This reveals a surprising truth. Prehistoric turtles were not slow or gentle creatures. On the contrary, they were extremely aggressive. With shells as tough as armored vehicles and sharp horns for weapons, male turtles likely engaged in fierce battles to compete for mates. If witnessed firsthand, such clashes would have rivaled the dramatic confrontations of large predatory mammals. Previous studies suggest that the earliest ancestors of Stupendemys geographicus may have appeared as far back as 70 million years ago, when dinosaurs still ruled the Earth. Even more astonishing is the fact that when the asteroid catastrophe struck 66 million years ago, wiping out most dinosaurs, these giant turtles continued to survive. Their enormous size and nearly impenetrable natural armor allowed them to endure in a world filled with terrifying predators. The discovery in the Tatacoa Desert not only adds an invaluable specimen to science, but also forces us to reconsider the evolutionary history of giant animals from an entirely new perspective. Clearly, dinosaurs were not the only giants of prehistoric times. Beneath the murky waters of ancient rivers, once lurked slow-moving yet immensely powerful armored beasts, ready to crush any challenger that dared to confront them. Do you think that beneath the scorching sands of Tatacoa or other barren regions around the world, there are still more colossal creatures waiting to be uncovered? I certainly think so. After all, Earth's natural history has clearly not finished telling its most astonishing and spine-chilling stories, and there are still countless mysteries left, aren't there? Residential settlement of 130 houses, buried for thousands of years, suddenly comes to light. There are places that seem like nothing more than empty land in the middle of Europe's peaceful countryside, but once the first layer of soil is removed, an entire chapter of human history suddenly rises to the surface. Pommelte, a small village located about 53 miles from Berlin, is one such place. If you think this is merely an ancient ritual site similar to Stonehenge, you may want to hold that thought, because what archaeologists have recently discovered here could force us to rethink the entire story. Right next to the Ringheiligtum Pommelte, also known as the Pommelte Sacred Circle, archaeologists uncovered the remains of 130 Bronze Age houses, quietly buried underground for thousands of years. This monument is famous for its structure of 7 concentric circles, surrounded by ditches and earthen embankments, where large wooden posts once stood, forming one of the most impressive ritual complexes of ancient Germany. Because of its distinctive design and ceremonial function, Pommelte has long been referred to as the German Stonehenge. For many years, researchers believed the site was used exclusively for seasonal sacrificial rituals. Earlier excavations revealed chilling evidence that reinforced this view. Archaeologists discovered fragmented remains of women and children, many skeletons showing signs of severe head trauma and broken ribs, seemingly left where they fell. According to scientists, these injuries likely occurred close to the time of death. All of this led researchers to believe that Pommelte was a ritual center where ancient sacrificial and funerary rites were performed. However, these assumptions began to crumble in May 2021. During the most recent excavation, a research team from Martin Luther University, Halle-Wittenberg, Germany, uncovered a vast residential settlement surrounding the ritual site. This was not a scattering of isolated remains, but a full community of 130 houses, including 80 complete house plans, spanning multiple time periods. This discovery raised a major question. If Pommelte was only used for seasonal ceremonies, why did people live permanently right next to it? Some of the houses date back to the same period as the initial construction of the Sacred Circle, around 2800 BCE, and may belong to the Bell Beaker culture, likely the original builders of the monument. Most of the remaining houses date to around 2200 BCE and are associated with the Unetice culture, a major early Bronze Age culture in Central Europe. This discovery has completely transformed how we understand Pommelte. It was not just a site for sacred rituals, it may also have been a social and religious center where people lived, worshipped, and maintained a deep connection to their spiritual world. Try to imagine daily life inside those wooden houses. How did these ancient people go about their routines? And with what mindset did they step into the sacred circle? Honestly, it's hard to imagine. Today, archaeologists are still continuing their excavations, hoping to clarify the relationship between the residential settlement and one of the most important ritual monuments of its kind. The next layers of soil may reveal even more secrets about the social life, beliefs, and faith of the Unetice people, individuals who left a profound mark on history yet have largely been forgotten over time. And who knows, perhaps beneath our feet right now, there are countless other sacred circles still waiting to be awakened. So tell me, are you ready to keep exploring with me? If your answer is yes, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. 900-year-old medieval knight's sword, found on the seafloor off the coast of Israel. Beneath the turquoise waters off the Carmel coast in northern Israel, a region steeped in thousands of years of history, within the cold, silent darkness of the seafloor, Israeli divers have uncovered an artifact that has sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. A sword measuring approximately 4 feet 3 inches in length, dated to the 12th century, precisely the period when Crusader knights were sweeping across the Holy Land. This remarkable discovery was announced by the Israel Antiquities Authority, IAA, on October 18, 2024. What makes it extraordinary is not only its age, nearly 900 years old, but also its near-perfect state of preservation, an extremely rare condition for objects that have rested underwater for centuries. The sword measures about 4 feet 3 inches long, with a hilt roughly 12 inches in length and a blade about 3 feet 3 inches long. It is made entirely of iron. Over time, and under the influence of marine life, a natural incrustation formed around the weapon, unintentionally creating a kind of protective armor that preserved the sword's original shape almost intact. According to Nir Distelfell, an inspector from the IAA's anti-robbery unit, This is not merely an ancient object, it is a beautiful and rare sword, one that may have once belonged to a crusader knight. Even imagining that possibility is enough to send chills down the spine of anyone with a passion for history. Picture it, a knight clad in iron armor, gripping this very sword, fighting on blazing battlefields in the name of faith and honor. And now, nearly a millennium later, his weapon has resurfaced from the depths of the sea, like a message sent forward from the distant past. But the sword was not the only find. During the same dive, researchers also discovered ceramic artifacts, stone and metal anchors, and other remains, clear indicators of a once bustling medieval harbor, possibly of strategic importance. According to Kobe Charvet, director of the IAA's Marine Archaeology Unit, the Carmel Coast offered ideal conditions for both trade and military activity. The area's natural small coves once provided safe shelter for ships during sudden storms, while larger bays supported ancient settlements such as Dor and Atlit. For this reason, the region is considered a vast archaeological treasure trove, where every shift of sand has the potential to reveal traces of history. One particularly fascinating point emphasized by the archaeological team is that the constantly changing conditions of the seafloor make locating and excavating artifacts extremely challenging. Even a minor storm can be enough to either expose long-buried relics or conceal them once again beneath layers of sand. That is why every chance discovery, like this Crusader Knight's sword, is immensely valuable, not only to science, but to the broader story of humanity itself. Experts must work quickly and precisely to collect as much data as possible on site before nature once again pulls these objects back into obscurity. So what are we really looking at here? Not just a sword, not merely an ancient artifact, but a doorway into the past, an invisible thread connecting our modern world to an era that has already become legend. And more importantly, it reminds us that beneath the seemingly calm waves of the ocean, countless untold stories and undiscovered mysteries still lie in wait, waiting for someone curious enough, passionate enough, and brave enough to bring them back to the surface. A bus-sized ancient crocodile fossil discovered in the Sahara Desert. Paleontologists in Tunisia have recently made a discovery that has sent shockwaves through the scientific community: the fossil of a previously unknown species of gigantic ancient crocodile. This was no ordinary crocodile. It was a true monster, measuring over 30 feet in length, weighing nearly 6,600 pounds, with a skull stretching almost 5 feet long. The species has been named Machimosaurus rex, a name that not only evokes the raw power of ancient crocodilians, but also brings to mind the true apex rulers of prehistoric food chains. And just as researchers describe it, Machimosaurus rex was indeed a giant and terrifying predator. According to Federico Fonti, lead author of the study and a specialist from the University of Bologna, this crocodile was enormous, almost the size of a bus, and it undoubtedly sat at the top of the food chain during its time, at least in what is now the Sahara Desert. So what makes this discovery so extraordinary? Scientists did not merely uncover isolated bones. They found a large portion of the fossilized remains near the edge of the Sahara in Tunisia. This region is well known for its rich fossil deposits and was once a vast lagoon system connected to the sea. Alongside the crocodile fossils, researchers also discovered the remains of fish and turtles, confirming that this area was once home to a diverse range of marine life. With its immense size and astonishing strength, Machimosaurus rex was a highly effective aquatic predator. It could silently ambush its prey or feed on animals that drifted lifelessly with the currents. Based on the structure of its skull and teeth, scientists believe this crocodile possessed an extremely powerful bite, capable of crushing bone and flesh, particularly that of turtles, which likely made up an ideal part of its diet. However, the most fascinating aspect of this discovery lies in how it dramatically changes our understanding of life's history on Earth. Before this fossil was discovered, scientists believed that the group of crocodiles to which Machimosaurus rex belonged had gone extinct around 150 million years ago, at the end of the Jurassic period. Yet this new evidence shows that the species survived an additional 130 million years, enduring even the Great Mass Extinction event that wiped out many forms of life at the end of the Jurassic. This revelation has sparked intense debate within the scientific community. Was the traditional theory of the Great Extinction truly accurate? Researchers now suggest that we may need to rethink our assumptions about life before and after this extinction event, especially in light of discoveries like Machimosaurus rex. This finding opens new doors for studying and understanding Earth's distant past. Machimosaurus rex may not be just a colossal ancient creature. It may also serve as a mirror reflecting the many secrets of life's history that remain undiscovered. When we look at this fossil, we are not simply seeing a giant crocodile. We are glimpsing a fragment of the past, one that science will continue to explore for generations to come. 2,000-year-old shoe, trapped in a bog, still remarkably intact. You know, there are some things that seem small and ordinary, so insignificant that no one pays them any attention, until they are pulled from the earth and suddenly bring the past back to life. This time, it wasn't a massive temple or an ancient skeleton, but simply an old leather shoe. And yet, that shoe had remained buried in a bog for 2,000 years, still retaining an almost intact shape, something that even seasoned archaeologists found astonishing. This remarkable discovery comes from Lower Saxony in northern Germany, uncovered by a research team from the Lower Saxony State Office for Cultural Heritage, working together with the excavation company Denkmal 3D Invecta. The shoe is made of leather and resembles a closed-toe sandal, with both sides fastened by simple but sturdy leather straps. Looking at it, one can easily imagine that this was not a ceremonial object, but an everyday item, once worn by an ordinary person walking across muddy, treacherous terrain. What makes the story even more compelling is what was found around the shoe. In the same area, archaeologists also uncovered a wooden road dating back to the late Bronze Age, constructed from multiple planks to allow people and carts to cross the bog safely. Nearby, they discovered a broken wagon axle, suggesting that a serious accident may have occurred at this very spot. By piecing together all these findings, experts have proposed a simple yet convincing scenario. Sometime 2,000 years ago, a wooden cart, likely pulled by livestock, may have suffered an accident while crossing this road. The axle snapped, forcing the travelers to stop and make repairs. While struggling to replace the broken axle, the owner of the shoe may have slipped or stepped off the wooden path, causing one shoe to become stuck in the mud. And there it remained, until today. The reason the shoe survived for so long is not magic, but the unique environment of the bog itself. The high acidity and low oxygen levels create ideal conditions for preserving organic materials such as leather and wood. As a result, the shoe did not fully decompose but was almost frozen in time. In fact, wooden roads like this were once quite common. Clear evidence of this emerged just this past May in the city of Dortmund, where workers installing a heating system unexpectedly discovered a 1,000-year-old medieval wooden road. That road had once allowed carts to cross a swampy area and was preserved thanks to a thick layer of clay above it. However, because such structures were made of wood, most have rotted away over time, and surviving traces are extremely rare. The newly discovered leather shoe may be the oldest shoe ever found in northern Germany. On a global scale, however, the record still belongs to another shoe, one dating back 5,500 years, discovered in a cave in Armenia. That shoe was made of cowhide, stitched with leather thread, and even its laces were still intact. Even more mysterious, it may have belonged to a woman and appears to have been deliberately buried as part of a ritual. Inside that cave, alongside the shoe, archaeologists also found 3 jars containing the skulls of children, as well as other vessels filled with barley, wheat, and apricots. An ancient ritual, a lost belief system, and a single pair of shoes quietly telling the story of people who lived thousands of years before us. From just one small shoe, an entire forgotten world opens up. And who knows, perhaps beneath every step we take today, history is still silently waiting to be told. 11 mysterious and shocking archaeological discoveries scientists still can't explain. Hello and welcome back to the newest video on the Ancient History channel. My friends, did you know that the ancient world has always been a treasure trove of mysteries, constantly fueling human curiosity? Some discoveries, when unearthed, have not only shaken the ground beneath our feet, but have also left the scientific community stunned. From skeletal remains buried thousands of years deep beneath desert sands to ancient structures built with techniques far beyond imagination, each discovery raises profound questions. Who were the people of the past really? How were they able to achieve such extraordinary feats? And have we been misunderstanding history for all these years? These traces are not only evidence of human development, but also enduring mysteries that modern generations continue to search for answers to. What makes it even more fascinating is that the deeper we dig, the harder it becomes to explain. The more scientists study these findings, the more puzzled they become, and we, as outside observers, grow more curious than ever. So, if you're someone who loves unsolved mysteries, sit back and get comfortable, because today's journey is sure to take you from one astonishing revelation to the next. Are you ready? If you are, then let's dive into our very first discovery right now. The 350-year-old mummy of a man containing a fetus beneath his feet. A mummified man was found with a fetus beneath his feet. Yes, you heard that right. This isn't from a novel or a horror movie. It's 100% real, and it comes from Lund Cathedral in Sweden. In 1679, the renowned bishop Peter Winstrup died at the age of 74 and was respectfully buried in his family crypt. He lay undisturbed for nearly 350 years. It sounds peaceful enough, doesn't it? But in 2012, when archaeologists were granted permission to X-ray his coffin, they discovered a foreign object, something that made everyone raise their eyebrows. A small bundle hidden beneath the bishop's feet. When they opened the coffin, they were stunned. It was a fetus. Yes, an actual fetus lying right beneath the feet of a bishop. Immediately, a major question arose. Why would a fetus appear inside the coffin of a man, especially a prominent bishop? According to archaeologist Torbjörn Ahlström, placing infants in the coffins of adults was not entirely unheard of. However, hiding one so carefully, particularly in the coffin of a bishop, left experts completely baffled. The fetus was determined to be around 5 to 6 months old. It had been carefully concealed beneath his feet, within the coffin lining, as if someone did not want it to be discovered. So whose child was it? Was there any connection to Bishop Peter Winstrup? To answer that question, scientists turned to DNA analysis. The results were astonishing. The fetus and the bishop shared about 25% genetic similarity, indicating that the fetus was most likely his grandson. But that's not all. Experts also discovered that the fetus and the bishop shared the same Y chromosome, which is passed down only from father to son. This means the fetus was the son of the bishop's son, a man historically recorded as Peter Pettersson Winstrup. It may sound complicated, but here's the simple version. Bishop Peter Winstrup had a son, and that son had a child who was never born. For some reason, perhaps tragedy, perhaps fear, a member of the Winstrup family secretly placed the fetus inside the bishop's coffin. Maybe they thought, who would dare disturb a bishop's coffin? And so, the fetus remained preserved for nearly 350 years, unnoticed by anyone. This story not only left archaeologists perplexed, but it also opens a deeply human perspective on family secrets, on how people confront death, and on children who never had the chance to live. If you've ever thought that history is just numbers and dates written on paper, the story of Bishop Peter Winstrup proves otherwise. History is alive, and sometimes it may be lying right at your feet. Fascinating, isn't it? The 5,600-year-old mummy that forced Egyptian history to be rewritten. Did you know that this world is full of mysteries? Some secrets are not buried beneath desert sands, but quietly rest behind glass in a museum, waiting for the day they are re-examined with fresh eyes. More than a century ago, an ancient body was brought to the Egyptian Museum in Turin, Italy. At the time, no one imagined that this time-dried corpse would be powerful enough to shake what we thought we knew about Egyptian civilization. The mummy was given a very simple name, Fred. Fred is about 5,600 years old, meaning he lived long before the era of the Great Pyramids or the famous pharaohs. According to a study published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, the latest analyses suggest that Fred has provided important evidence that ancient Egyptians may have practiced mummification about 1,500 years earlier than previously believed. That is enough to push back the timeline of one of the most famous traditions in human history. What makes this especially remarkable is that since being discovered more than 100 years ago, Fred has never undergone any modern artificial preservation. No added chemicals, no restoration interventions. This original condition makes the mummy an ideal specimen for scientists to re-examine old theories. Simply put, Fred is like a living witness whose testimony has never been altered. At first, researchers believed this was merely a naturally mummified body. In the harsh, hot, and dry conditions of the Egyptian desert, a corpse can dry out and be preserved without elaborate rituals. This explanation was accepted for decades. However, when a team led by Egyptologist Jana Jones carefully analyzed the linen wrappings around the body, the story began to change. Chemical tests revealed traces of an embalming ointment on the fabric, and this is where things became truly astonishing. The formula of this substance included plant gum or sugar, heated conifer tree resin, and aromatic plant extracts. It may sound simple, but its composition closely matches the mixture used 2,500 years later during the peak of Egyptian mummification, when pharaohs such as Tutankhamun were preserved using highly sophisticated techniques. This means that very early on, the Egyptians already possessed significant knowledge about using tree resins and natural compounds to slow decomposition. They did not rely solely on the desert climate, they actively intervened with a carefully prepared formula. As a result, history is no longer as straightforward as we once learned, that mummification only truly developed during the powerful dynastic periods. However, Fred still bears the marks of a transitional stage. The body was found in a fetal position, with all internal organs still intact inside the body. This is completely different from later mummification practices, when the deceased were laid flat and their internal organs were removed before preservation. This difference shows that mummification techniques evolved step by step, from primitive beginnings to the complex procedures we are familiar with today. So what do you think led the Egyptians more than 5 millennia ago to care so deeply about preserving the human body? When did belief in the afterlife become so deeply rooted in their consciousness? The 1,000-year-old Inca mummy, found slumped over that shocked experts. Have you ever imagined that beneath the busy streets of a modern capital, there could be an archaeological secret thousands of years old? This isn't just something from a movie. It actually happened in Lima, the capital of Peru. While workers were installing natural gas pipelines, they unexpectedly uncovered an ancient tomb estimated to be about 1,000 years old. What makes this especially remarkable is that this mummy does not belong to the famous Egyptian civilization known for its pyramids and pharaohs' curses. Instead, it comes from an indigenous culture in South America, thousands of miles to the west. During the expansion of the natural gas pipeline network in the Puente Piedra district, an area that is now part of a city with millions of residents but was once vast farmland, workers discovered fascinating archaeological remains. About 4 feet below the surface, they found the mummy of a child in a seated position, which was both unusual and characteristic of burial customs at the time. The child, estimated to be between 10 and 15 years old, still had dark brown strands of hair preserved on the head, something astonishing considering nearly a millennium has passed. Archaeologist Jesus Bahamonde, who led the archaeological oversight for the gas company Calita's project, stated that the artifacts and burial style date from around AD 1000 to 1200. Researchers also discovered a huarango tree trunk, a drought-resistant native tree typical of Peru and Ecuador, buried about 20 inches below the surface and used as a grave marker. This detail shows how ancient people utilized natural resources to protect their burial sites. The mummy was wrapped in a burial shroud a few feet from the tree trunk, accompanied by artifacts such as ceramic plates, pots, and containers decorated with geometric patterns and images depicting the lives of fishermen. Interestingly, in some of the plates and bowls, archaeologists even found traces of shellfish, such as crab. This offers insight into the community's diet and perhaps even the personal tastes of the deceased child. Bahamonde believes the mummy likely belonged to the Chankay culture, a fishing community that flourished along Peru's coastline from around AD 1000 to 1500, before the rise of the Inca Empire. The fact that the mummy's face was oriented westward, toward the ocean, further strengthens the theory of this community's deep connection to the sea. This serves as vivid evidence that the Chankay culture once thrived and possessed many distinctive characteristics that history has not yet fully documented. Today, Lima is a densely populated city with approximately 11.5 million residents. Because of its rich and ancient history, major construction projects there are required to include archaeological supervision. In fact, since Caleta began expanding its gas pipelines more than a decade ago, the company has discovered and excavated more than 2,200 archaeological remains throughout the city. Peter Van Dalen, Dean of the College of Archaeologists of Peru, explained that finding funerary remains, including tombs and individual mummies, is very common along Peru's coast. Many mummies are naturally preserved by the hot, dry climate, which dehydrates the skin. They are often found in a seated position with their hands covering their faces, a burial custom typical of many indigenous cultures. Isn't it astonishing that a modern, bustling city can contain such a vast history and so many secrets hidden beneath the ground? That is the wonder of archaeology. It allows us to connect with the past and better understand the lives of our ancestors thousands of years ago. The discovery of the mummy in Lima comes at the same time that Egyptian scientists are making major breakthroughs in unraveling the so-called pharaoh's curse, one of the oldest mysteries surrounding the deaths of members of the team who excavated King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. After decades of speculation about supernatural forces, recent studies have identified the true cause as harmful bacteria and microorganisms present inside the tomb. A finding that not only dispels myths, but also opens new avenues of research in medicine, particularly in the fight against cancer. And that's not all. In distant England, archaeologists in the Cotswolds have recently uncovered the remains of an important Roman villa, marking a new step forward in understanding Roman architecture and daily life in the region. The discoverer, Glenn Manning, shared that a strong intuition just before excavation led him to this remarkable find. You see, from modern cities like Lima to the scorching deserts of Egypt to the peaceful countryside of England, archaeology continues every day to uncover the mysteries of human history. Each discovery is not only a valuable piece of the past, but also a spark that ignites our passion for learning and exploration. What do you think? Or do you see it differently? Feel free to leave a comment below so we can discuss it together. 1,000-year-old mummy in Peru, preserved in almost unbelievable condition. Along the arid lands of Peru's Pacific coast, where sandy winds sweep across ancient ruins thousands of years old, lies a site once considered one of the most sacred pilgrimage centers of the pre-Columbian era of the Inca Empire, Pachacamac. This was not only a place where ancient people placed their faith in the gods, but also a land that has safeguarded secrets sleeping for an entire millennium. And believe it or not, at this very site, long familiar to archaeologists, a discovery emerged that stunned the world. During excavations, experts from the Curie Patrimoine Archaeological Research Center unexpectedly uncovered a remarkably unique ancient burial complex. It was not a massive stone tomb, nor a coffin adorned with gold and silver. Instead, it was a funerary bundle, a burial practice characteristic of the Pachacamac region. At first glance, it may sound simple, yet the tightly wrapped layers of fabric and plant fibers functioned much like a natural coffin, protecting the deceased from harsh environmental conditions for hundreds of years. What astonished researchers most was what lay inside those layers. When they opened the funerary bundle, they found a mummy preserved in near-intact condition. The skin, body structure, and burial posture remained in astonishingly stable condition, as if time itself had forgotten this person in the flow of history. Imagine that, a body resting underground for more than 1,000 years, yet still preserved well enough for scientists to conduct detailed studies. Isn't that incredible? To determine its exact age, the research team conducted radiocarbon-14 dating on samples taken from the mummy. The results showed that the individual was buried between a D1000 and 1200, meaning more than a millennium ago. This period predates the height of the Inca Empire's power, during a time when Pachacamac was already a major religious center in the Andes region. The mummy was so well preserved that it could be safely transported to a laboratory for more in-depth analysis. There, scientists plan to use a range of modern medical imaging techniques, including X-rays, CT scans, and 3D reconstructions. These technologies allow researchers to see inside the body without damaging its original structure. Through these images, experts hope to gain a clearer understanding of the individual's health, possible cause of death, and the burial rituals practiced by the ancient inhabitants of the region. What makes this even more fascinating is that each mummy is not merely a preserved body. It is a story. It could be the story of a pilgrim, a person of social status, or even someone connected to important religious ceremonies. Every layer of fabric wrapped around the body, every object included in the funerary bundle, may carry symbolic meaning that researchers are still working to decode. So who do you think this person was? A devoted follower? A leader? Or simply an ordinary individual deeply respected by the community? And how many more secrets remain hidden beneath the dry sands of Pachacamac? It's hard to say, isn't it? Yet the journey of uncovering the past never loses its appeal. Each new discovery opens another door leading us back to a lost era, where humanity, belief, and death intertwine into stories that transcend the limits of time. The Yellow Brick Road, 1,000 meters beneath the sea, a mysterious gateway to the lost seventh continent. In the vast depths of the ocean, where sunlight cannot reach and life exists according to rules entirely different from those on land, humanity continues to search for clues about the formation of Earth, and perhaps even about lost civilizations. During a routine survey mission, while the exploration vessel Nautilus was conducting geological and deep-sea biological research near the Hawaiian Islands, scientists unexpectedly discovered a strange phenomenon: a winding yellow brick road stretching across the summit of a seamount approximately 3,280 feet below sea level. Located within the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument in the Liliuokalani area, named after the last monarch of the independent Kingdom of Hawaii, the rock formation left both researchers and global audiences astonished. Not simply because of its extreme depth, nor entirely because of its appearance, but because it looked remarkably like a man-made brick road. The yellowish stones appeared neatly arranged in straight lines, resembling a modern sidewalk or pathway. The unusual alignment of the rocks, the separation lines that looked as though bricks had been deliberately laid side by side, and the warm golden glow reflecting off the submersible's lights led the scientists on site to exclaim in amazement, "Are we standing on the road to Atlantis? Could this be evidence of a civilization that once existed beneath the ocean floor? Or was it simply a visual illusion crafted by nature over millions of years of geological activity?" To find answers, researchers collected rock samples, analyzed the geological structure, and compared the formation with similar phenomena documented in global geological history. Initial findings revealed that the so-called Yellow Brick Road was not man-made, but rather a natural geological formation known as a dry lakebed pattern, created by intense underwater volcanic activity. Specifically, at the summit of Nootka Seamount, geologists identified the rock forming the pathway as hyaloclastite, a type of volcanic rock produced during high-energy eruptions beneath the ocean. When scorching lava comes into contact with cold seawater, it cools rapidly and shatters into fragments. Over time, these fragments accumulate into thick layers. Across millions of years, repeated eruptions and thermal contraction cause the rock layers to crack and fracture into evenly shaped slabs, creating the striking appearance of an ancient stone road leading to some hidden destination in the deep sea. Isn't that fascinating? A completely natural phenomenon capable of deceiving the eye and igniting the imagination to such an extent that we begin to wonder, if humans did not build it, could something beyond our current understanding be at play? Could legendary civilizations we know only from myth, such as Atlantis, have once existed, leaving traces buried deep within geological layers and hidden beneath the ocean? Another important detail is that Papahanaumokuakea is not only a biological treasure, but also considered an underwater archaeological sanctuary. It preserves vivid evidence of the formation of undersea volcanoes, an essential factor in helping scientists understand how the ocean floor is shaped, and more broadly, the global structure of Earth's crust. The samples collected from the Yellow Brick Road do more than clarify how this unusual rock formed. They also provide valuable data about ancient volcanic activity. This contributes to the development of detailed geological maps of the region, information crucial for both scientific advancement and future maritime safety. So what do you think about this discovery? Is it simply a remarkable geological phenomenon? Or a whisper from the distant past? An elusive hint of a civilization swallowed by the sea? Whatever the answer may be, that Yellow Brick Road, at the moment of its discovery, opened a doorway to the imagination, where science and mythology intersect, creating a journey of exploration that both challenges our intellect and fuels our belief in things never written in textbooks. The 1,000-year-old incorrupt body of a Chinese monk. In Shaoguan City, Guangdong Province, China, there stands an ancient temple known as Nanhua Temple. It is not only a peaceful place of Buddhist practice, but also home to something that has amazed generations. The physical body of Huineng, the sixth patriarch of Chan Zen Buddhism during the Tang dynasty of ancient China, has remained seated there for more than 1,000 years without decomposing. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? For centuries, folk tradition has held that when an enlightened monk passes away and the body does not decay, it is called a bodhisattva body. In Chinese history, Huineng is considered the first recorded case of such a phenomenon. What makes this even more remarkable is that his body is not buried deep underground. Instead, it is enshrined solemnly inside the temple, where generations of devotees have come to pay their respects. According to tradition, Huineng was born in AD 640. At birth, two monks gave him a meaningful name. His father died early, and his family lived in poverty. As a child, Huineng spent his days selling firewood to support his mother. He received no formal education and could not read. His life seemed destined to revolve around marketplaces and mountain forests. Yet fate intervened in an unexpected way. One day, while selling firewood in town, Huineng heard someone reciting the Diamond Sutra. Although he could not read and had never studied Buddhist teachings, he immediately grasped the profound meaning within the verses. That moment changed his life forever. Realizing his spiritual calling, Huineng said farewell to his mother and embarked on a challenging path of cultivation. After years of hardship and diligent practice, he eventually became the sixth patriarch of Chan Buddhism. In the year 713, he gathered his disciples to give his final instructions, then peacefully passed away. Accounts say that at that very moment, a rare and fragrant scent filled the temple. A radiant halo appeared. Trees seemed to change color, and birds and animals cried out mournfully. These signs led many to believe his passing was no ordinary event. What astonishes later generations even more is that from that time until today, more than 1,000 years later, his body has remained in a seated meditation posture. Guangdong's climate is typically hot and humid year-round, conditions that would normally accelerate decomposition. Yet Huineng's body has neither dried out nor decayed. His face still conveys a sense of serenity and calm, as if he were deep in meditation. At a glance, some even feel as though he is simply sitting there quietly. To this day, science has not provided a fully satisfactory explanation for this phenomenon. There are no records of artificial embalming methods being used, nor is there evidence that the body is a man-made creation. During the Cultural Revolution, when the Red Guards sought to destroy traditional values and ancient beliefs, Nanhua Temple did not escape harm. They used sledgehammers to damage the temple. A small hole remains on Huineng's chest, reportedly caused by them as they attempted to determine whether the body was merely a statue. However, when they found that the internal organs were still intact inside, they were said to have been overcome with fear and immediately knelt down, begging for forgiveness. Whether viewed from a spiritual or scientific perspective, the story of the incorrupt body of the sixth patriarch Huineng remains a mystery that invites deep reflection. Are there things beyond our ordinary understanding? Or did faith and spiritual attainment bring about this extraordinary phenomenon? And you, after hearing this story, which explanation do you believe? As for me, I find the teachings of Buddhism truly miraculous. The remains of 6 women and 11 animals in a 1,500-year-old tomb in Germany. Some of history's secrets are not found in books, but lie silently beneath the ground, waiting for the day humans accidentally uncover them. This time, it was construction equipment preparing to build a poultry farm in Germany that unexpectedly awakened a story that had slept for 15 centuries. Imagine this. In the middle of a modern agricultural project, an ancient tomb from the migration period, the most turbulent era in Europe following the fall of the Roman Empire, is suddenly revealed. What would that feel like? Archaeologists quickly stepped in, and what they discovered astonished the entire research community. At the center of the grave stood a large bronze cauldron, not a wooden coffin, not a stone sarcophagus, but a cauldron, an object often associated with ritual and power. It is believed to have held the cremated remains of the deceased, who was likely a member of the ruling elite of that time. Archaeologist Suzanne Friedrich from the Halle State Museum of Prehistory stated that her team is still searching for additional remains. This means the full story behind the cauldron has yet to be revealed. But what made the excavation even more chilling was what surrounded it. 6 female skeletons were discovered arranged around the cauldron, as if intentionally placed. One hypothesis suggests they may have been consorts of the powerful man buried there, women who were laid to rest alongside him to continue serving him in the afterlife. Yet the haunting question remains: were they sacrificed against their will, or did they voluntarily take part in a burial ritual out of belief and loyalty? To this day, science has not provided a definitive answer. The site revealed even more. The remains of 11 animals were also found in the grave, including large livestock, dogs, and horses. A burial ceremony of this scale indicates that the individual interred there must have been extremely wealthy or held significant power. The migration period was a time when Germanic tribes, including the Huns, moved across territories once controlled by Rome, reshaping power structures and establishing new orders. In that context, such a grand funeral was not merely a farewell ritual. It was a declaration of status and strength. As archaeologists expanded their survey of the area, they discovered approximately 60 additional graves nearby. This suggests the site may have been an entire ancient cemetery, dating from around AD 480 to 530. Each grave provided new pieces of the historical puzzle. Researchers uncovered an exquisitely crafted glass bowl, gold-plated jewelry attached to garments, a sword, an iron shield, and notably, a gold coin bearing the image of Emperor Zeno. That coin serves as a timestamp, confirming a connection between this community and the fading Roman world. Even more remarkable were the glass artifacts decorated with unusual carved patterns. Experts believe they may have been crafted by Gallo-Roman artisans living along the Rhine River, as only they had mastered such refined techniques. This suggests that even after the fall of the Roman Empire, its cultural influence and craftsmanship continued to spread among emerging communities. From what began as a simple construction project, an entire forgotten chapter of history resurfaced. Standing before that 1,500-year-old tomb, one does not see merely bones and artifacts, but feels the breath of a turbulent era. Was the individual in the bronze cauldron a tribal leader or a renowned warrior? What did those 6 women experience in their final moments? Perhaps it is precisely these unanswered questions that make the past so haunting and so compelling. Don't you think so? The lamp that burned for 1,000 years, beneath the tomb of Qin Shi Huang. Dozens of feet beneath the ground, in a sealed, damp, and pitch-dark chamber for more than 2,000 years, and yet, a flame is said to have quietly continued burning. No wind, no circulating air, no one adding fuel. It sounds like legend, doesn't it? But this story is closely tied to the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unify China. Qin Shi Huang was known not only for his power and conquests, but also for his obsession with immortality. He believed death was not the end, but merely a transition into another world. Because of that belief, in 246 BC, shortly after ascending the throne, he ordered the construction of his own tomb. The project lasted 38 years and reportedly involved more than 700,000 laborers and skilled craftsmen. The sheer number alone reveals the astonishing scale of the undertaking. As you may know, his mausoleum is already surrounded by mystery. There is the army of more than 8,000 life-size terracotta soldiers said to stand guard, including headless statues that have sparked much debate. Historical records also describe rivers of toxic mercury flowing inside the tomb, designed to replicate a miniature map of China. Yet even these astonishing details may not be the strangest part. Inside the tomb were said to be lamps known by an eerie name, eternal lamps. When archaeologists studied historical accounts of this area, many were stunned by records claiming that these lamps were still burning, as if they had never gone out over thousands of years. Think about it, a flame surviving through centuries of upheaval, through the rise and fall of dynasties, hidden deep underground yet still shining. Isn't that almost impossible to believe? At first, many dismissed the story as legend, an embellishment meant to heighten the mystique of the powerful emperor's tomb. However, over time, various ancient records and pieces of evidence have strengthened the hypothesis that such lamps may indeed have existed. This raises the biggest question: how could they have burned for so long? One of the most widely discussed theories involves a special type of fuel, whale oil. According to ancient Chinese records, whale fat was once used as fuel because it burned far longer than ordinary wax candles. In addition, the structure of the lamps was reportedly designed with sophistication. As the fat melted, unused fuel would drip into a container below where it could be reused. This cyclical mechanism has led some to believe that the lamps could have maintained light for an extremely long time. If this theory is true, it would not only demonstrate the remarkable technical skill of ancient craftsmen, but also reflect a powerful aspiration, the desire for eternal life. These lamps were described as guardians of light, silently protecting the emperor's everlasting rest. The flame was not merely for illumination, it symbolized an undying soul, a belief that power and life could extend beyond death itself. So what do you think? Was this an extraordinary technological achievement of an ancient civilization? Or is there still something beyond our current understanding? As for me, whatever the explanation may be, the story of a 1,000-year flame that never went out still sends chills down my spine. Because sometimes the most unsettling thing is not the darkness inside a tomb, but the light that refuses to fade within it. 72 mysterious villages beneath the sea, traces of life that challenge human history. For a long time, the ocean has been seen as a world of darkness, crushing pressure, and strange creatures, rarely as a former home of humankind. Yet recently, a shocking discovery has forced scientists to reconsider much of what we thought we knew. 72 ancient villages have been found beneath the seafloor, and even more astonishing, traces of life there remain almost perfectly preserved. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? The story did not begin with a massive research expedition, but with a chance dive. While exploring deep waters, a diver noticed unusually stacked stone structures. At first, he assumed they were natural rock formations, but the closer he looked, the more he recognized straight lines, walls, and foundations that bore the unmistakable marks of human hands. The discovery was quickly reported, leading to a large-scale underwater survey. When scientists conducted thorough research, they determined that this was not just a few scattered ruins, but an entire complex of 72 ancient villages. Their age turned out to be far older than initially expected. What was found there left researchers stunned: pottery, fish hooks, fishing nets, and numerous everyday tools. All of it clearly indicated that people once lived, worked, and thrived in a place that now lies deep beneath salt water. Just think about it. Why would ancient people choose to live there? One hypothesis suggests the area was once dry land before sea levels rose. However, another theory proposes that these ancient residents may have taken advantage of the ocean's abundant resources. Rich supplies of fish and shellfish, a relatively stable environment, and perhaps fewer threats from rival tribes could have created the conditions for a sustainable and prosperous community. What particularly captured researchers' attention was not only the presence of household tools, but also the discovery of burial sites. Finding graves indicates this was not a temporary settlement, but an organized community with beliefs and long-term stability. These traces reflect a fully developed culture, one in which people not only survived, but also built a spiritual life in what we would consider a harsh environment. The architectural remains have also reshaped our understanding of ancient capabilities. Solid foundations, well-organized spatial layouts, and signs of decorative artistry suggest construction skills and design thinking far beyond what we once assumed. These were not scattered primitive groups, but potentially a highly organized, adaptive, and remarkably creative society. Yet the deeper researchers investigate, the more questions arise. Were the inhabitants of these 72 villages connected to our ancestors? Were they part of a known ancient civilization recorded in history, or an entirely independent branch of human development that we have never known about? And perhaps more importantly, is what we are seeing only a small fragment of a much larger submerged world? These underwater discoveries may be just the tip of the iceberg. The ocean still contains vast unexplored regions and countless unrevealed secrets. Who knows? Beneath those deep waters, there may be stories waiting to be told, forgotten chapters of history waiting to return to the light. After all, to this day, we have explored only about 5% of the world's oceans. There are still far too many mysteries for us to ever fully comprehend. The 100-million-year-old dinosaur mummy that shocked the world. Scientists have called this prehistoric dinosaur the best-preserved dinosaur ever found on Earth. In fact, it is so exceptionally preserved that it is difficult to even define it as a fossil. This stunning ancient specimen, measuring 18 feet long, has been nicknamed the dinosaur mummy. On May 12, 2017, the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology in Alberta, Canada, unveiled the dinosaur specimen to the public. Caleb Brown, a researcher at the museum, even told National Geographic that they didn't just have a skeleton, they had an entire dinosaur with its body largely intact. When it was excavated, the dinosaur's body was remarkably undamaged, despite the immense passage of time. Its bones were not exposed, and even some internal structures remained preserved. Researchers were astonished by the nearly unprecedented level of preservation. The creature was originally discovered in 2011, when an oil sands worker named Sean Funk accidentally struck the specimen during his shift. That day, while excavating, Funk was surprised to uncover something unlike anything he had encountered in his previous 12 years on the job. In the afternoon, Funk's excavator hit something unusual in the ground. He and his supervisor, Mike Grattan, wondered what the strange colored masses could be. Was it fossilized wood? The rib bones of some ancient animal? After several examinations, they were stunned to realize it was neither petrified wood nor a fossilized tree stump. It was a dinosaur fossil. Following the discovery, researchers spent 6 years and approximately 7,000 hours examining the evidence and preparing the specimen for exhibition at the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology. More than 100 million years ago, when this ancient prehistoric creature roamed the Earth, it belonged to a newly identified species and genus known as a nodosaur. According to paleontologists, this was the first time a fossil of this kind had ever been found. Typically, it is extremely rare to discover a fossil that still retains soft tissue in its original position. Usually, only bones and teeth are preserved. This makes the find truly extraordinary. The dinosaur was identified as a massive four-legged herbivore. Its body was protected by thick, armor-like skin covered with sharp spikes. It is estimated that when alive, the dinosaur weighed about 3,000 pounds. When its mummified remains were discovered, it still weighed nearly 2,500 pounds. When the museum posted images of the dinosaur on its Facebook page, one curious user commented, "What kind of plants did this dinosaur like to eat? Was it usually gentle? If provoked, would it hiss and snap like a turtle? Or did it react differently? Was it male or female?" How this dinosaur remained so intact after being unearthed is still a difficult question for scientists to fully answer. However, according to National Geographic, researchers are considering the hypothesis that the creature may have died somewhere inland. Rising waters, possibly forming a flooded river, may have carried its body out to sea. Once settled there, its armor and outer skin were gradually replaced by minerals over millions of years. This mineralization process preserved its shape, resulting in the extraordinary specimen displayed today. This dinosaur will go down in scientific history as one of the most beautifully and best preserved dinosaur specimens ever discovered. It has even been compared to the Mona Lisa of dinosaurs. With the dinosaur mummy now on display at the Royal Tyrrell Museum, visitors have the rare opportunity to observe what is considered the closest thing to an original, intact dinosaur. And when you see this remarkable specimen, I believe you may be able to vividly imagine the life and era of the dinosaurs. The Apollo spacecraft engines, beneath the ocean floor. In the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, more than 14,000 feet below the surface off the coast of Cape Canaveral, Florida, lies a place many believed would never be reached for 4 decades. It is not a sunken ancient city, nor the wreck of a legendary pirate ship, but the F-1 rocket engines, the massive steel hearts that once propelled humans away from Earth and carried them toward the moon. And then, what once seemed impossible became reality when an expedition led by Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, located and recovered them from the deep sea. Just hearing that gives you chills, doesn't it? Imagine the cold darkness of the ocean floor as the lights from a submersible sweep across thick layers of sediment, revealing enormous twisted metal structures shaped by time. Jeff Bezos once described the scene as an underwater wonderland, where the F-1 engines lay scattered like a strange sculpture garden, beautiful in a dramatic and solemn way. These were not merely rusted pieces of metal. They were witnesses to a program that changed human history, the Apollo program. Let's turn back the clock to 1969. The Saturn V rocket carrying the Apollo 11 mission lifted off, sending Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin toward the moon. To break free from Earth's gravity, the first stage of the Saturn V used 5 immensely powerful F-1 engines. After completing their task of pushing the rocket toward orbit, they separated and fell into the Atlantic Ocean. At the time, it was almost assumed that these silent heroes would remain forever buried beneath the sea. However, about a year before the recovery took place, Jeff Bezos announced that his private expedition team had located old hardware on the ocean floor that he believed to be engines from Apollo 11. The news stirred excitement throughout the scientific community. Then, on March 20th, NASA Administrator Charles Bolden confirmed that Bezos had shared his recovery plans with NASA nearly a year earlier. NASA also expressed excitement when the expedition reported that 2 of the Saturn V's first-stage engines had been successfully brought up from the Atlantic seabed. Just think about it. After more than 40 years under the crushing pressure of the deep ocean, these machines were still recognizable, still bearing the marks of their historic journey. This was not merely a technical recovery operation. It was a mission to bring history back to the surface. Every bent and weathered piece of metal tells the story of humanity's ambition to conquer space, of an era when the entire world watched as humans ventured beyond our planet. Jeff Bezos shared that once the 2 F-1 engines were recovered, he intended to display one at the Museum of Flight in Seattle, near the headquarters of Blue Origin and Amazon. That gesture carries special meaning. From the Apollo dream of 1969 to today's ambitions in commercial spaceflight, it has been a long journey. These artifacts from the ocean floor do not belong solely to the past, they also inspire the future. So this story is not simply about finding a few pieces of metal beneath the ocean. It is a meeting point between history and the present, between the moon dreams of the past and the soaring ambitions of a new generation. And perhaps one day, standing before those F-1 engines displayed in a museum, we will better understand this truth. Some things may fall into the deepest depths and seem forever lost, but with enough determination, humanity can still bring them back into the light. You see, with every archaeological discovery, every fragment, every piece of wood is a clue that helps us piece together the bigger picture of the past. So, what do you think about today's discoveries? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments section below this video. Thank you for taking the time to watch all the way to the end. If you enjoyed today's topic, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to support us. For now, goodbye, and we'll see you next time.